Yeah.
Oh, Myrtle's on tonight.
Hang on a minute. It's a meeting going on. Is that my phone?
Yeah.
Just in time, 5:30.
Yeah. We got 5:30, guys. Paul, can you lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote.
Jenny David.
Here.
Roger Mayhew.
Yes.
Craig Scott.
Here.
Brenda Simmons.
Here.
Harley Wiltsey.
Under Sheriff. You able to come up and say a few words, please?
Take a minute, with moment of silence. Good employee over 30 years, started back in July 20th, 1990. Benny Tomasi started in 94, was trained, was in the corrections department for those full 30 years. He was well known, well liked. He was an asset to the corrections department, to the sheriff's office over generations, and the community in which he served. He was respected by countless law enforcement officers that encountered him during day-to-day operations. And people in the community loved to interact with Vinny. Whether it was a good story, the one-liner, he always had something, he had a big heart. He's gonna be sorely missed, both at work and outside of work. You've seen him here at commissioners meeting. I enjoyed his presence multiple times over the years at city council. He was active. He was stood up for his beliefs, yet had the biggest heart that you would ever seen. So we send thoughts and prayers out to his family, to his coworkers. Everyone is pretty shook up with the sudden loss of Sergeant Tomasi. And I thank you.
Thank you, Paul. On behalf of the Board of Commissioners, we wish to extend our heartfelt condolences to the family, friends, and coworkers of Mr. Tomasi. We will be forever grateful for his service to Ogemaw County. I did also receive a phone call this afternoon from LaDonna, requesting the flag to be at half-staff for 7 days in honor of this individual.
You wanna?
Is there anything we
That's
have?
fine with me.
Is there
Make a-
anything, hold on, guys, is there anything we need to do to make that happen?
Yeah, that directive is fine. We'll make sure that it happens.
Anything else, Paul?
Thank you.
Very sorry for your guys' loss. Roll call vote.
Did that already.
Oh, shoot, sorry. Who wrote the agenda? Any additions or corrections?
I'd like to, I got an interested party in purchasing, the Pointer Hill Park from the county, and I'd like to talk about it.
We have a hard copy of the agenda. I didn't see any back there.
Oh, they're on the back table.
I did this. Can you grab one? Okay, where would you like that, commissioners?
It can be at the end if you want. I don't,
Pointer Hill?
yeah.
Any other additions or corrections? Thank you, Paul. Public comment and agenda items only? Appointments. We have Rebecca Yunker, Northern Michigan Children's Assessment Center Service Update. Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. Thanks for having me. I believe Tim had, or somebody had a presentation who was up there
Here
a
it
minute ago.
comes. Yep.
Is it coming? You're doing that from your phone?
I'm not. no.
Oh. So kind of, those of you, Karen was at our 10-year anniversary. Can't believe it's been 10 years since we opened the center in Roscommon, and started servicing Ogemaw, Escoda, Crawford and Roscommon counties. And since then, we've added Iosco and Otsego. So we are serving 6 counties now in the 10 years that we've been providing services to children and families. So I just thought it would be nice to kind of give just a kind of a good overview of what we've been doing these last 10 years. So just to remind everybody, the next slide is our mission. Control over. So our mission is to foster healing and to reduce the trauma of child abuse and neglect by providing prevention, intervention, and advocacy to children and families. So really our main focus is whenever there's a child that is going through an investigation because there's allegations of sexual abuse, severe physical abuse, or witness to a crime, we want to ensure that that investigation does not enhance or continue to expand that trauma that that child has already experienced. So by bringing kids to the Children's Assessment Center for that forensic interview, we work closely with our law enforcement partners to ensure that we're doing everything that we can to reduce the trauma. And then not only reducing that trauma, is we want to make sure that we work with the families and provide them the support and services that they need. So our next slide then really focuses on, you know, do we need a Children's Advocacy Center? 1 out of 10 children, research tells us, will be sexually abused by their 18th birthday. So when you look at and think of that, the sad part of that is we know over the years of research, approximately only 30% of our kids, or 30% of sexual assaults are never reported. So you think of that population that is not reporting. You think about all the adults that we hear that, you know, hey, this happened to me when I was a child. They don't disclose until they're an adult. We hear that from the parents coming through our center, adults coming through the center. This happened to me as a child. These services weren't available, or we just didn't talk about it. We weren't supposed to tell. And so we really want to change that narrative and ensure that the kids that are needing services know that we're there. Because when you look at our stats, so the next slide, it's probably going to be hard to see. I'll kind of go through, and overall, so since the 10 years that we've been there, new kids, we've seen 3,324 kids come through our center. Out of those kids, the kids that come through, we had 632 from Ogemaw County. We're kind of leveling out when you look at our 2019-20. When we look at, we consistently was seeing a rate around between 50 to 80 kids from Ogemaw County. In 19-20, we saw 56. 2021, we saw 101. And then that was kind of that COVID year when kids were coming out of COVID and our numbers just skyrocketed, and we're starting to level those back out again. So the next couple of years we're 63, 60. And then this year, you can pass those around. We had 39 kids come through the center this year. 5 of those kids received exams at the center. We provided 184 therapy sessions, and that's really where we want to focus, is making sure that these kids are receiving the services. And then our family advocates met with families 176 times, really providing that family advocate support. So our advocates work with these families to ensure that they're getting the services that they need. Sadly, coming to the center and the allegations just might be one issue that that family is dealing with. They might have food insecurities. They have issues with transportation. There might be domestic violence. There's drugs, alcohol use in the home. So we really want to ensure that we're working with those families to get them all the services that they need. So the numbers, I think, really just highlight the fact that these services are essential and the services are really needed. So the next slide, we really want to talk about, it's our belief by providing a safe environment for children when they're disclosing abuse, we're going to help them heal. So by doing that, you know, obviously we're protecting the community from future abuse, we're protecting those kids from future abuse, and other kids in the community being abused by that offender. The next slide, we focus on, you know, what is the solution? Obviously, we really want to look at prevention and how can we prevent abuse from happening. I don't know if that ever necessarily is ever gonna happen 100%. But we know that we can by working with the communities, educating communities. And a big part of that is what we're seeing now that we've been there for 10 years. And I think that kind of reflects the numbers, how we've started to level out again, is if we are investigating crimes when they're happening, we're providing the families and the kids with the services that they need. That's preventing those future, getting them the help. So hopefully those kids are gonna not become our offenders. And then also future kids in the community by investigating these cases and protecting them from that future abuse. So we also want to look at not just that primary prevention, how can we stop this from happening, but long-term wise, if we're going to continue investigating these cases and providing the services that are so essential for these kids, we can continue to make a difference long-term, and hopefully start stopping that generational abuse. If we can get the families the services that they need, we're not going to see that generation of abuse happening. So we're really trying to be more solution focused on what can we do. So the next slide is looking at what we have accomplished in the next 10 years. When I started the center in 2014, it was like October of 2014, I was the lone soldier. I was doing all the forensic interviews. I was getting the center up and running. You look now, going 10 years later, we have 12 full-time employees. So with that, what we have done is expanded. How are we providing? So no longer do we want to be that center just that we do that forensic interview, because we know when law enforcement calls us, and our role in that investigative stage is to make sure that these kids are being interviewed in a way that's non-leading, non-suggestive, trauma sensitive, child focused, and gathering the most accurate information from kids. We know law enforcement, and the sheriff probably can attest to, law enforcement, they don't have the capability a lot of times to send other deputies to trainings, to have the specialized training that they need, to really to sit down and have the time to spend with these kids to make sure that we're getting the accurate information from them. So by using a trained forensic interviewer to do that, we can ensure that we're weaning those cases out in regards to what cases does law enforcement need to move forward on, what cases maybe do we just need to provide support. So that's one piece of what we do. So when we started, that's what we were doing, is just ensuring that we had those good, solid forensic interviews. But we know that's not enough for these families. Once that interview is done, law enforcement's going out, they're going out and they're doing their investigation, they're interviewing suspects, they're gathering evidence, they're, scheduling polygraphs and they're not focusing on the family. And so when protective services is not involved in providing support, that family's left floundering on where do I go for services? What do I do next? Who's going to support? So that's our staff then does that. With our advocates and our therapists, we can ensure that the families then are getting the support that they need. Another what we've really added has been a really supportive service to the community is our SANE program. So in 2017, we got funding for a sexual assault nurse exam program. So we have nurses and advocates that are on call 24/7. So whenever law enforcement gets called out to a domestic violence sexual assault, and that victim needs a SANE exam, so within 120 hours, that assault happened, we know that that's the best time to collect evidence. So instead of sending them to the emergency room where they're sitting in the waiting room of an emergency room, how could be there for how long? And a lot of times not having a nurse who's trained to collect the evidence the way they're supposed to, or an ER doc who doesn't have the time to spend or be trauma sensitive with these victims, our SANE program, then they can come to our center, have that SANE exam. We have trained SANE nurses who are on call and our advocates to work with those families. That program, we do see all ages, kids, adults. We had a 73-year-old woman had to come into the center for a sexual assault exam. That program, and that's within, if they're assaulted within a 5-day time frame, then we'll collect that evidence and ensure that it gets to law enforcement when appropriate. So we've come a long way in 10 years, but we also know our next slide kind of reflects on that we still have work to do. In the 10 years, our budget has increased. We started with like a $64,000 budget. My 25 budget is 1.2 million now. So with that, I can't stress enough the importance and support that we get from all of our counties and our commissioners and how important that is. For one thing, it helps us to be able to provide the services that we need to. We're completely nonprofit. We completely provide all of our services free of charge. We don't bill insurance. The families never get a bill for any of the services they receive at the center. And only about 63% of our budget is state and federal funded. So the state and federal funds that we get that help support our staff, so that helps, ensure that we're providing the best services, that we're hiring the staff, getting them the training that they need. So we need a 20% match in order for us to keep our federal and state funding. So that match that we get from our counties, and then the funding that we get from our counties, just to help ensure that we're able to provide all these services free of charge. So the support that we get from you and all of our other counties just ensures that we can continue to do this work. So, and then I think the next slide leads into the work that needs to be done. We know that there's victims out there that still have not received the services that they need. There's families that need to be aware of our services. We need to educate the community on what is, where they can access services, how they can go about getting in touch with us. So, when we look at that underserved population, the next slide, I looked at the stats. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to, so with the support, we can continue to expand our services. We can reach the children who have not been heard. And I think our next slide is. So I might need some help on this one. My glasses aren't going to read. So I looked at the stats for Ogemaw County, we have about 21,700 people in Ogemaw County.
Yeah.
So with that, we have about 4,400 kids. That sound about right? So statistically speaking, research tells us that 1 out of 8, 1 out of 10 children will be sexually abused by their 18th birthday. So I pulled our numbers from 2022. We had 43 kids come through the center. Statistically speaking, we should be serving about 12% of those. So that's about 12% of the kids that we are seeing that potentially could be abused. So we know we still have about 80% of those kids that, from a statistical standpoint, research says there's still probably 80% of kids out there that need services that have not accessed it. So that's that population that we really want to make sure that we get out to the community and let the communities know if you need these services, they're available to you. So our next slide is, what is our vision? Our vision is to really continue to work with our communities to ensure that all children and families are able to receive the essential services that they need. And then that we can have an environment that's abuse and neglect free. So really the vision is us working together as a community. It's not us at the center. It's not just the community. It's everybody has to work together. And the partnership that we have with our law enforcement, with our prosecutors, with Children's Protective Services, and then ultimately with our counties and you as commissioners ensures that that happens. So it's so crucial, and we appreciate so much the partnerships that we have with you. So with that, I want to talk just a little bit about our next vision. So those of you who have visited the center, I know Brenda's been there, a couple other commissioners. We started in that little top left-hand corner that's kind of green and a little bit of yellow and brown. Yep. And we started there, and now we have that space is housing our forensic interviews, our therapy, our medicals, all offices, and we have 12 people in there. And we're getting a little crammed. We're all sharing offices. So I guess maybe a blessing in disguise, and it's got mixed messages. But our commissioners in Roscommon County closed our Second Chance Academy, and they closed our detention center. And that's who shared the space with us. So our commissioners are working with us to deed over this section of the building to us, and we can expand those services. So we're working with Three Rivers out of Midland. So all those big long lines down, the blue, the red, and the yellow is where our detention center was. So that was housed our whole detention center. And then the section down, the green and the yellow big, was our Second Chance Academy. What our vision is to take this space, divide all of our units up, so every discipline will have their own space and their own suite. One thing I'm super excited about is the red area. We have a tiny little section right now, it's like that little brown area, that is our medical suite. And it gets really frustrating and discouraging when I have a whole waiting room full of little kids who are coming to the center because they're there for an interview, they're there for therapy because our focus is children, but our first step program does see adults. And then I have a 35-year-old woman who's sexually assaulted and she needs to come in for a SANE exam. So it doesn't provide a lot of privacy, it doesn't provide a lot of confidentiality, and it's just not a conducive space for adults when we're a child advocacy center. So with that red area, that's going to be a whole medical suite in and of itself. It'll have its own entrance area, it'll have its own waiting room area, we'll have the exam room there, we'll be able to collect all the evidence there, be able to protect all the evidence. We'll have showers, so when a SANE exam happens, after we do all the evidence collections, those victims can take a shower afterwards. Above that, the blue area will be our investigative suite. So we'll have 2 forensic interview rooms. Law enforcement will have their own observation area where they can come and observe the interviews. They'll have their space for their investigation. And then most of the green and the brown is really where we want to expand, and our vision is to ensure that we provide all the mental health services that we need. That will give us the capacity of having 5 full-time therapists. So having the therapy that our families need, providing the advocacy that our families need, we'll have a training center that we can really work with our partners and ensure that we're doing the appropriate training that we need, and continue providing services to the community. So our vision, we're kind of working with Three Rivers right now. They are predicting it's going to be about a $3.5 million project. They're working on their construction documents right now. Once the construction documents get done, then we'll put those out for bid and start getting the bids in. So once we get those bids and the construction documents done, we'll have a better sense of what that, if we're close at the 3.5 million. We're in kind of a silent phase right now. We have raised just shy of 800 that people we have that already have approached us, that we've talked with, and have pledged their gift already to this program or to this project. So in the next year, that's what we'll do, is continuing. I am reaching out to all of the counties and doing my presentation to all the commissioners. We are looking for people in the community to be on just a committee. It's our building campaign committee that can just help us maybe identify people in the community that might be interested in a project like this and investing in a project like this. We're doing tours at the center, bringing people through just as a tour, letting them know what our service is, what our vision is, and how potentially they can help support that. So please think of that. Kind of put the word out there. If anybody who would like to be on a building campaign committee, the only qualification we're asking, or even request that we're saying, is just we want to help get this word out to the community and to help us spread the word that we are in this phase of our campaign. So that's our vision. We're hoping within 2 years that we'll be able to start that construction and get things going. And that's just going to be able to provide better and more thorough services for the kids and families in our community. So again, I appreciate your support. We're at this stage, we're just asking you to continue your allocation to the center. I believe I sent that to Tim. So we're just asking for that support this year. I presented this week to Roscommon also. So I was talking with Jody just about if any building grants come across your desk, if there's anything that you can partner with us as commissioners or as a county on a grant that might support a building campaign, that might support mental health, support services like this, please let me know. I'm more than willing to work with you and partner in writing grants or doing reaching out to other investors or anybody that might be able to help support this project. So that's my other ask, is just brainstorming, thinking about that, keeping that on your radar. If things like that come across your desk that might fit this project.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for all the information.
Questions?
For all that you do.
Thank you.
What's our contribution?
$5,000, and I loaded today the copy of the draft contract, so I would suggest that that get moved forward to next week for resolution.
Questions, comments, commissioners?
Thank you.
Probably do.
I'm glad you're there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4B, Tom Spencer, Information Technology Director, Cisco Umbrella Renewal. Tom, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Before you tonight is just a cost estimate for a software service that we use for filtering. It very protective of for our network. And again, it's one of those things where I found out that we were renewing it annually when I started. And when we make the commitment and do a multi-year quote, we save some money. I don't have any intention on getting rid of this service. I had originally thought about asking for the 5-year. I'd rather just stick with a 3-year commitment, and things change, and something else may come up that comes along that's just as good for a lower cost. But I'm asking for the support to renew this for a 3-year period at the cost of $7,000. They did back in 2018, a 1-year quote was $3,500 and a 3-year quote was $7,000. So that was obviously a no-brainer, but they did realign their cost, and a 1-year quote now is $2,597 and a 3-year is $7,000. It's when you divide the 3 years out, it comes out to $2,333 a year. I will say I'm kind of shocked. If you look, this is the one piece of software or one thing that I've researched that hasn't gone up. You can see it's been $7,000 for a 3-year commitment since we first did this in 2018. I'm not going to complain about that though.
Questions, comments? Tom, if we want out of this contract, we can get out, correct?
Yeah, I imagine we probably could. I don't know. I'm sure they would probably prorate it, but it's kind of funny you bring that up because I just told Tim the other day, I belong to a group of tech people across the state, and we all email and ask each other questions. And this particular piece of software got brought up after I had sent this to Tim to be on the agenda, and it's widely recommended for municipalities. And I don't really foresee any reason why we would want out.
Questions? Comments? Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
It's done.
Item 5A, Animal Control Program.
Earlier today, I had a meeting with representatives at the Ray Shelter who are here tonight. Can perhaps supplement commentary. Just talking about what the program would look like moving forward. And as I think many of you have already contacted me, there's already questions in the community about when are we going to start the animal control program back up. We had a law enforcement committee meeting before this one. We had the undersheriff, who's also here now, talking about the animal control officer position. I believe that's going to be posted, and we should be able to be up and running with a person, certainly by the first of the year or shortly thereafter. On the shelter side of the component, we already have the framework in place with the contracts that we've had for the last few years. But I want to point something out to you in the purchasing policy, how I think this could play out and could potentially make this a very efficient process. Under our purchasing policy subsection I, it talks about the competitive bidding requirements. Now, at the last meeting, we were talking about putting out an RFP and circulating it to see what would be available to us. There is only one bona fide shelter in Ogemaw County. We know that. That's one that's certified by the state. I don't know if it's licensed or certified or exactly what the terminology is. And that's the Ray Shelter. And if this is a program that we wanted to combine or confine to the borders of Ogemaw County, that would then qualify them as what we've defined in our policy as a sole source provider. And when we have a sole source provider providing professional services, we do state in our policy that the competitive bidding requirement is not mandatory in that case. That's not to say you can't do it, but it's not mandatory. And in this case, and I remember the conversation last time we talked about What if there was another neighboring county that had a shelter? But that seemed to get lukewarm reaction from the board. You know, do we really want to be picking up animals in Ogemaw and taking them to another county? And if that's the case, and I would suggest that logistically would be a challenge for us. You could declare that this is a sole source professional service that you don't have to put out for RFP. Putting that aside for a second, ultimately, we would need a contract with Ray or whomever to perform the service. And like I said, we already have the basic framework there, but there are some components I think that would need attention. And this is something that we would work on, and I would work on with Ray to come up with a draft contract for you to consider. One consideration would be firm price, rather than saying we're going to pay X dollars per dog that's brought in. We simply get a firm price. For the fiscal year, it will cost X dollars, and that would be billed monthly. That would help the shelter with its tax or with its cash flow issues. And it would certainly, for the county, provide that certainty that we need that that service is available for the period of the contract. That would also allow us to get this up and running. I'm very confident that the next round of meetings yet in December, you would have a draft contract to consider, and this could be in place shortly after the first of the year. You know, the taxes are already being collected on the tax bill that's out right now. That could move this rate along. So we get that whole package together. So we get the animal control officer hired and in place. We get our contract for the shelter services in place. We're off and running. Simultaneously, I bring you a draft budget for your consideration and approval. Would obviously be set up in its own fund because it is a millage-based operation, and we're able to move forward. This is now your call. I mean, do you want to declare this a sole source service and move forward, or do you want to put out an RFP? I'm just suggesting, I don't think there's going to be much response to an RFP, that we may be just delaying the inevitable for 30 days or whatever period that RFP is out for. But that's what I have for you to consider tonight.
I personally would not like to put out an RFP. We have an animal shelter here.
Yeah, I like sole source too, because as a taxpayer paying taxes for animal shelter services, I don't want to go to Roscommon County or Gladwin County or Aranet County to go pick up my dog if it happens to get picked up by animal control here. It takes a lot of time out of mine. Plus, I got to go over there and look to see if my dog's there in the first place. If it's not there, I've wasted a trip. So I think sole source is the way to go. I mean, we have the people who are trained here. We have the facility. We have a veterinarian that supports them, that they can go, well, it doesn't work for them, but they have a veterinarian that they go to often. Everything's in place. You know, they're licensed. They have the facility there. It's run very well. In fact, I would say the person that's running the shelter right now is probably the best one we've ever had. And I would hate to lose that individual. And she's very accommodating. And sometimes things get really tight with space, and she still is tries to do whatever she can to accommodate. But sometimes that's not possible. But I think sole source would be perfect. We have everything here. And our taxpayers would say, why do I have to go to Roscommon and get my dog if we pay taxes here? They're not going to understand that.
Commissioner Mayhew,
That'll work.
Commissioner Scott,
Nothing.
Commissioner Wiltie.
Yeah, with being the only shelter in the county, I definitely would like to see this stay within the county. We know this is an issue that the taxpayers, the majority agreed that they want to see this service. I think it's an important service. The reports that we've heard from the undersheriff, who's mainly give us reports, and Scott has, resigned. It seems like there's a lot of calls. My only concern would be, and I understand what Tim's talking about, and I think we need to look into the options of that if we don't do a per dog service, and it's might be a monthly fee. I'm just concerned that we'd run into problems like we are right now, where from the emails that I'm reading is we can't even take a dog there because they're completely full. So my concern would be that we're paying this high premium per month. And then we're running into a situation we have right now is they can't accept the dogs or the pets. You know,
I was gonna ask, that if we go the sole source, do you have to do the premium or is it a possibility we could still do per dog?
Well, the only thing with the per dog is you don't know from week to week, month to month, how many dogs you're gonna have to be dealing with.
Right.
And yet the service is still there on standby, waiting, for a dog to be dropped off. And frankly, this is the only county I've ever seen it done that way. Most of these are done on a, either a, biannual, monthly, whatever payment. Just thinking about many of the other contracts that we do. I know, for instance, excuse me, with our medical examiner contract, it's a quarterly bill that we receive. Either way, I mean, you're in effect paying for standby service in that case. And one of the things that we would address in a contract would be what happens when they're at capacity. How do we deal with it then? I wouldn't even venture a guess right now how that would work out. But in the next couple of weeks, I would meet with the representatives from Ray and figure out a plan.
question.
What?
We have some Ray people here. Do you guys have anything you'd like to talk to us about right now or comments or?
We know that it's been, the temporary contract has been a little bit of a struggle. We will accept that, and we have 15 dogs today. We have 15 spots today. Those dogs are all county dogs, starting in February of this year. So we don't have any dogs other than county dogs, and our turnover is very good. We adopt out as many and as much as possible. Vet services, we work with the local vets most, and get everything done as quickly and as cost effectively as possible, because I can tell you, we don't have money. He's the treasurer. So we have made it this far based on the giving, souls that help us out. What we're looking for is some financial stability and assistance in our day-to-day operations, in our payroll, to keep the place open so that the county has some place to put the dogs. There have been multiple times this year, even with a contract in place, that we have been nearly closed. So if we close, there is no place. And the local shelters, the other counties surrounding us also max capacity. So there is no place to go when there is. I say personally, it's a COVID situation where everybody got pet.
Yeah.
They were all at home and now they can't deal, or they've decided they don't want it. So it's an influx into the system, and we're having, we have max capacity pretty much all day long every day of the year. So what we're doing, we're hoping, and we talked to Tim today, and we have lots of ideas. We have, we will do reports. We can do a lot of things to make this work for both parties. But as it stands, we really have to have something, because there's no way for us to keep our doors open as it stands, going forward. The influx of dogs that we had this last month maxed us out, and we can't take that many dogs. If we can't take a dog from a surrender, say somebody wants to surrender a dog, if we don't have the capacity to take that surrender dog, we don't take it. The same thing with the county dogs that we've shut down right now for December. We will have plans in place. It's hard to have plans for something larger than you're used to when you don't have any money anyway. So this is where we're working with you guys, and we're hoping to make this a very beneficial agreement for everybody involved. So do you have anything else to And we adore our director, so we do not wish for her to go anywhere else, even though one of the vets would like to hire her on a regular basis. Just, we're willing to work. We know that there are going to be requirements of us as far as reporting and things like that, and that's not a problem. We have a board meeting once a month. We have lots of reports. So we have gotten this far and we don't want to see anything fail, so.
Did you have a question?
So your current means of revenue then, besides the county revenue, is basically just donations?
We basically we're funded by donations fully. That's why back in the beginning of this year, we came to you guys and said, we would like to start a millage. So that's where it came from. It has been a long time coming. It cannot function fully on donation only. We're a 501c3, and we do have very generous people who donate, but that obviously is not a consistent means to keep the doors open on a 20-plus-year-old building that has things that need fixing and roofs that need replacing and, you know, those kind of things. So we have a well-run, well-managed shelter that can benefit everybody.
Just one more question.
Go ahead.
So if you guys had consistent cash flow, do you have the landscape as in being the size of the building to, with that consistent cash flow, to be able to take more than 15 dogs?
With the size of the building, no, we're maxed out inside. We can possibly think about that long-term. Right now, we don't have any building modifications or anything on the books, because we basically can only keep what we have and keep that moving. So I would say that it's something that if you make it bigger, you need more staff. To pay more staff, you need more money. So it's an increasing project that I know that's of course going to be the question that comes up is, well, if you can't take all the dogs, then you know what happens then. But at the same time, if we can't take any dogs, we can't function that way either. So
Tim, what would we be able to use to cut for this expense? Won't that come out of the millage?
Right.
Okay. Well, do you have anything to add to this? I thought you guys already knew, I guess maybe I misunderstood who was gonna be the animal control.
Yeah,
Employee?
there was some discussion at the law enforcement committee, so the end result was
They're gonna try to hire.
get applicants,
Okay,
just to see what our options are before we present a final.
the goal is just so we can communicate this to our townships is January 1 to get this rolling, okay?
I'm very
Well,
confident.
could you say
we could do it.
January?
Yeah.
I
Well,
just say
That's fair, January,
January, sometime in January.
yeah,
I
okay,
don't want to commit them to a specific date.
because I have been asked. Anything else, guys?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
when this was brought up by the shelter about the possibility of a millage, we threw out these questions about how much is it gonna cost? Because we only levied 0.2 of a mil. If 0.3 of a mil had to be there, then we should have levied that much out there. We should have asked for that. If we didn't ask for enough, because that's what I'm hearing from them, that they have doubts whether or not we got enough millage money coming in.
that's not at all what I'm saying at all, not at all.
Well,
I'm
in
not-
our conversations, we came up with a number that was gonna,
Hold on, let Commissioner Scott finish.
okay, but we agreed with the number. Okay, we agreed with the number. And to take care of any and all dogs that the county would come up with. I mean, if we needed more money, we should have asked for more money, build a big dog house and for lack of a better term, and and not worried about amounts of dogs. I mean, I don't know why we're at this point already. We've gone to the people and asked them for the money. Now they have entrusted us, and I gotta think that anybody that voted for it is figuring that this shelter is gonna be able to take on any amount of dogs that the county finds. I'm not concerned about the person that just has a dog, because that doesn't have anything to do with the millage. I don't know why we're at this point and we have questions whether or not we can do it.
I think go ahead, Tim.
I was gonna say, just from experience, I can tell you, this time of year, the shelters tend to fill. Just when it starts getting colder, it happens. And hopefully, you know, as time goes on, some of these animals are adopted out, there's more capacity. Not sure if it was said here, but I do know through the emails I've received that even the surrounding counties are experiencing full capacity right now at their shelters. So I don't think this is unusual. At the same time, I would just encourage us to, you know, take this initial step. If after 2 years we decide, no, this is not enough, we can go back to the voters and ask about that. But right now, I'm not sure that's the case. I think we're dealing with a seasonal anomaly that will likely work itself through. Would it be nice to have twice as many kennels and half of them empty? Yeah, sure it would be, but that's just not where we are at the moment. So let's give it the opportunity.
If I sign my name on a contract, I want to make sure that it takes in 12 months a year and not up until November 20th, and all of a sudden, oh no, we can't take them for a couple of months. Christmas time. Santa Claus.
Are you,
can have-
well, I'll let you respond, and we have to wait till Commissioner Scott
Go
is
ahead,
done.
go ahead, that's fine.
Okay, we're gonna give her the floor now.
I'm not
Okay.
all done, but go ahead.
The contract that we had with the county for this temporary one was 4 dogs a month.
Mhm.
So the contract that was signed by the county was 4 dogs a month. We got 9.
Okay, so why didn't?
Commissioner, let her
why didn't
finish,
we
Commissioner
sign for
Scott.
more?
Go ahead.
So I'm just throwing that out there because that's what, up until this point, prior 2 years contracts, we had a limit of, it was actually like 50 dogs per year for the monthly stipend of $625. Plus, I think it was $50 per dog after the 50. We well worked with that. We had probably 60, I would guess, 75, maybe the first year.
60 the first year, 72.
Okay, that's right. I did flip flop. So we've done lots of dogs, and we've done 75 dogs up to 72, probably, whatever. In previous contract years. This temporary contract was done very quickly and at a very need to know, like, we gotta have something in writing. So when that was completed, it was 4 dogs per month. We were going by the contract. And when we hit 9 dogs, we physically cannot take more than that 9 extra dogs. So that's where we're coming at with that. That has nothing separate, that is totally and completely separate from the 2 previous years that we've had contracts with the county. We have done our due diligence and we've done our duty of taking whatever dogs they've given us. And we've eaten costs right, left, and sideways, because $625 a month doesn't pay for 1 dog.
No.
So that's where we started the discussion about the millage. And when we came to everybody with the thought to do a millage, we came up with the 0.2, because that's what our operating costs would be. That's where the 0.2 came from. So that's where we did the work and the millage. Our board sat down and decided this is what we need to operate on an annual basis and not be in the red, 9 months out of the year. So we came to you with the 0.2. Then it was told to us that it's technically your money to disperse as necessary because we're a 501c3, right?
That's a legality, yeah.
Exactly. So this is when we became, we're just the we backed off, we stood here, we let everything go as needed. But the 0.2 came from us for our operating costs. It had nothing to do with animal control or anything else in the midst of all that,
Yep.
as far as we're concerned.
Well,
We're
I
not
was,
asking for,
I'm
we're
an-
not asking for the full amount. You,
No,
we haven't
that's-
even discussed.
no, matter of fact, the number I heard was less than 0.2. We added it up to 0.2 to pay for animal control on top of it.
We were certain,
Because that the first vote was just shelter services. The second vote included animal control.
we were certain when we came up with that would cover the cost. It's, the millage is passed. We're in the beginning stages of this conversation. I think there's gonna be a lot more information to come. You're gonna present us with some options.
And next committee, the whole meeting, I would hope to have that in front of you.
Okay, thank you. No decisions need to be made tonight. We're just in the beginning stages of this.
Right, and conceptually, we'll move forward with that sole source definition
And more information.
and get this coming, yeah.
And I appreciate the updates from the undersheriff related to shelters and availability. So you sent us a very extensive email. Couple of them. Anything else, Commissioner Scott?
Well, it's just, if we got 9 in the last month, and if we use that for any kind of planning, I mean, we're gonna be well exceeding
Commissioner Simmons.
any historical amounts.
Commissioner Simmons. Commissioner Simmons,
That's all right.
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, it's just that we collected 9 in the last month. Takes that and times it by 12. I mean, we're 50% over the highest value that we had before. So, and I don't know, it sounds like the sheriff's department was almost ready to bring in more dogs. Wasn't it the sheriff's department that was taking the dogs there? I don't even know that for sure.
There were law enforcement officers, yes, that had.
Law enforcement.
Yep.
Okay.
That brought them there. If I
And you
can-
could have probably took more,
Hang on, Paul.
right?
Sorry.
No,
But yeah, if the circumstances arise, would have arisen, that's why we talked about different options with surrounding kennels, animal shelters. If we run into something that was serious, such as a dog bite that needed to be quarantined, that type of thing, we made other arrangements to get us through. The one thing that I would add to the conversation is that when an animal control is in place, and like with Scott, some of these dogs that are going to the kennel now can be diverted by that animal control officer because he can find an owner or find other avenues. So it's a give and take. The contract can address as far as when they start to get the capacity, once the animal controls officers in place, they can do things similar to Scott did as far as find owners or find alternatives to actual kennel placement. So there's different things that can be addressed once the puzzle pieces are put together, and then the long range planning can be done between the shelter and their board and the commissioners here, so.
there was also stress that this is an abnormal amount of animals currently. So yes, Commissioner Simmons.
And with the previous contract, it said 4 dogs a month. Am I correct? Did it say 4 dogs a month? Then if
The temporary, not the.
right,
Scott.
right, temporary, whatever, still 4 dogs a month. Then if we anticipated that it was gonna be more dogs than that, we should have let the shelter known, and we should have based our millage on more than 4 dogs a month. Not all of a sudden, here we are, we're gonna bring in 10 dogs a month now.
There's gonna be more information to come. And again, like Paul said, with an animal control officer in place and us back to a normalcy, hopefully things.
That's true.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
Thanks, yeah.
I feel like a couple of commissioners are basing a lot of assumptions all of a sudden on financial costs that we're not even aware of yet. Tim stated he's gonna meet with Ray again and have productive talks. We need to see that before we,
Yes, jump to conclusions or problems that aren't there yet.
but in the meanwhile, we're working towards.
Well,
A goal.
well, I see in it, the expansion needed, I think there's gonna be money enough in this. I'm hoping you're gonna build something in so you can expand with this and not just charge enough just to get by.
Hey, more to come on this.
Is that something I can assume?
I don't know if we even have the available property to really build on. We have a very small lot. I don't know if it's
Well, do you
actually
need
been-
more money to buy more property?
Then we have a whole nother building.
Build upstairs. I don't know. Dogs do go upstairs, you know?
No dog has ever been refused from the county. We only ran into an issue this time because we had a temporary contract that stated 4 dogs. We're not being compensated for the rest of those dogs. That was the issue that we ran into. No dog has ever been.
Nobody asked you
You
to get
have to-
compensated for more.
You're-
Did you ask?
She was not done speaking.
Okay.
But that was the issue that we ran into. I will figure it out. I will make space if it's. If there's a will, there's a way. But
That's what I like.
that was the issue is we're not being compensated. We can't just take in 15 dogs with no money. That was the
I
issue.
agree, but you didn't ask us for more.
We appreciate, and it sounds like it was an emergent, abnormal situation.
Right.
Again, thank you, guys. We're gonna move forward. We have a lot of things to cover. We look forward to more information, and thank you for all that you do. Item 5B, bid opening.
Okay, but before we get to the actual opening, just some framework I need to set up. Again, this is all coming strictly from our purchasing policy and how we handle these bids when they come in. The first issue, I do have a contractor who's asked for an extension, and this extension would apply to the boiler replacement. The contractor said he just has not been able to get all of the components together that he feels he needs to put together a thorough bid. The boilers, he's also talking about the air handlers and configuration of all that equipment. He had additional personnel in the building yesterday, just looking at different ways to make a different type of boiler fit. So you do have within your authority to issue an extension. Just as far as the rules are concerned, there's actually 2 ways to go about this. You can do an extension that is for 2 weeks or fewer, and I would submit just because of the scheduling that we have at board meetings, that it would be a 2-week extension that you would consider. But at that point, then we need to advise any other contractors who's bid on that project of the extension, and then they would have an opportunity to reconsider their bid as well and come in at the new date. If the extension was more than 2 weeks, then all quotes and proposals would be returned. So what makes this problematic is that we have a proposal in here that was one of those design build proposals that combines 4 of the 5 projects into one. So as we open those, we'll have to take that into consideration. Another section in our contract talks about late bids, and it's pretty cut and dry. Any quotes or proposals received after the closing time will not be considered. Late bids will be rejected, and that's stated twice in our policy. We do have a late bid on the lighting. According to that policy, that bid's just simply set aside. It's not accepted. It was actually turned in a day late. And I want to remind you that the board, as a board, you have the sole discretion to reject any bid. You do not have to take a low bid at any time. You want to take the bid that is most responsive. I don't think this is going to be that complicated because there aren't that many bids to consider. So with that background, I'm going to go ahead and open these and then just in compliance with our policy, read out the pricing that we receive. And then we'll talk about next steps. All right, so the one bid that's rejected is from Nighthawk Electric. And there's no point in doing anything more with it. We have to reject it. The one that combines 4 different projects is from Three Rivers Corporation and the SIDOC Group. They are bidding on the boiler replacement, the window replacement, the secure entrance, and the ADA compliant restrooms. They did put in their cover letter that this is one of those design builds. It likely will, well, we'll just open it, but rather than say what it was.
That's a question before that's open.
Go ahead.
So don't we make a decision yet if we're gonna extend that possibility for the boiler? Cause he's got boiler talks in with this.
Right,
We don't wanna open anything.
a good point. So, does that,
Can you tell us how many boiler bids we currently have right now?
just this one that combines the other 3 projects with it?
That's the only boiler
The
bid.
only other boiler bid we have.
The other one wants to be extended.
The other one would like to have it extended.
What time frame do they have? What time thing did they have to put their bids in?
These RFPs have been out for at least 30 days.
That's what I thought.
On November 20th, I think it is, that we had the meeting with potential vendors, toured the building.
If we're not happy with the one that we have, we can deny it and put that one specifically back out for bid again, correct?
Yes,
We've opened up the door for a.
Well, we have. I said if we deny it.
right. In recalling the conversation on November 20th with this particular bidder, I believe what we're going to see is a proposal that has a design phase and a firm price that would also allow us to amend the agreement later on, after they coordinate bids for all of these projects. So they would then get with contractors that can do boilers, that can do window replacement, secure entrance and ADA compliant restrooms. And they would act pretty much as the project manager on behalf of the county. You know, Commissioner Simmons felt very strongly about that approach when we had the conversation before. So it's just a different concept. The other proposals that we've received deal specifically with the projects as they were bid and have a firm price.
So then if that one's lumped together and we again deny that one or choose another path, then we can put just the boiler out, back out for bid,
Yes.
correct?
You can,
So then that other individual has an opportunity to whomever to.
Right.
Okay. I'm personally against an extension. We have a policy, we are setting a precedence. They've had 30 days. I understand things come up and things happen, but I think we need to move forward. We have a time frame.
right? And, you know, also depending on what these other numbers come in at, I mean, there may be decisions made as to which of these projects you do. You may not be able to do them all. I don't know. I don't know what the price is, so.
Other opinions before we move forward? Commissioner Simmons?
And we have until the end of this month to get bids, to accept bids. That's all we've got.
Because
It has to be committed. The money's gotta be committed by the end of 2025 and spent by the end of 2026. But it has to be committed by December 31st, 2025. That money has to be committed.
2024.
I mean, 2024. Sorry, moving right along. And it has to be spent by the end of 2025, right?
End of 2026. So these projects will have 2
Okay.
years to be completed.
Okay,
Commissioner Mayhew,
Let's get going.
so you're against the extension?
Yeah.
Commissioner Scott?
Did we get any lighting bids at all? Just the late one?
No, you do have another one.
Okay.
We have bids for all the other 4 projects,
okay.
Or
Commissioner,
individual bids?
right?
Oh, we do. Okay,
Except for the boiler, right?
then go ahead.
Commissioner Wiltie?
But we can still commit to this money being spent for these improvements without having to make a decision right away. I just think it's really important. I mean, only, our boilers, extremely important. It is disappointing that they didn't get us the number, but it sounds like they had people in here yesterday, so they're paying people to be here to give us a price. I mean, we can still commit to spending this money for the improvements. I really think it's a strong, smart move for us to get another price on the boilers. I mean, that's a big system. I'd hate to go off at just one price.
Well, we can reissue the RFP, and it'll be a very short time frame, but we could reissue it and still have everything in compliance with the Arbor rules. So we're not completely out of time. It's gonna be tight, but we can still do it.
We have 4 that say, we're against the
But
extension.
now they're gonna have a
So
number to go off of.
we're in agreement to move forward. There's 4 of us. I heard what Commissioner Wiltie said, but
Another comment, we've been working so hard at this. Why rush this? You can
Right.
commit to the money, you're gonna get spent for the right reasons.
I don't think we're rushing it. Right now, we're setting a precedence. I think, again, I just asked everybody's opinion and everybody, a majority of us agreed that let's move forward. Let's not accept the extension. Let's not move forward with the extension that was requested. We have a policy. We put it out for bid. This is where we're at right now. It doesn't mean that we're not gonna be happy. We may not be happy with what we see.
Yeah.
I don't think we will be.
So let's move forward.
Okay. So this is the Three Rivers.
Karen, did you have something?
I just want to add, Tim, I sent you the definitions of commitment for the ARPA money. And you can't just have RFPs
Right.
as a commitment. You have to actually have contracts going by December 31st, not just RFPs. So
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead.
Thanks, Karen.
Might take a second to find pricing. A lot of information about who they are. Okay, the proposal is in two phases. The first phase will be completed by January 31st. And that would be the design phase. That cost is $7,200. The construction phase would, as they start this design and construction by February 1st, but there is no price. And this is where my fear was. But without going through the entire proposal to confirm, what they were talking about on November 20th was exactly that. They would come forward with their concepts, have those completed in January, and then would bid out each of these projects, you know, for management on their own end. What they were proposing is a contract that would encompass both of those. And then the contract would be amended later on to fill in the blanks on the cost. And I'm concerned about the timing on that and whether or not that's going to meet the definition of what the Department of Treasury wants as far as commitment is concerned. But okay, so that proposal is there.
Well, basically, they want us to pay them $7,200 so that we can give them an extension. And the other guy just wants an extension for free.
Yeah, well, it would be a change order to a contract. So 7,200 there.
Oh, I know.
And the change order would be, here's the cost for the boiler replacements, the cost.
For them to be the contract manager primarily.
Right,
Yeah. But then the final cost is unknown.
right.
Okay, so let's move forward.
Second bid is for the window replacement from Jack Morris Construction. In fact, the balance of these are Jack Morris Construction, as I recall.
And that's a contractor that did the annex building, correct? So he's with
Yes.
the county.
Yes.
Okay.
Also did the holdover over at the juvenile center.
Okay, oh, yep.
Okay. He's got actually two proposals in here. One that he's labeled as the most energy efficient. And remember, this is the window replacement project, and this is every window in the county building. Total cost $661,500. He's got a second proposal in that apparently is not the most energy efficient, $264,300. Now, when we were talking during the walkthrough, there were two approaches he was thinking about. One of them was just to replace the glass, which is what I believe the 264 bid was. The other one was to actually replace the entire window unit. I can tell you just from my experience in my office, replacing the glass is not going to do the job. I'm getting drafts from all the way around the frame, and it is, 50-year-old window. So I don't know that the lower number here is one that would be accomplishing what we'd like to accomplish. So that one's $661,500.
Holy cow.
Told you want to be happy.
Keep going.
Next one is for the lighting.
All we had for windows,
Yes,
one estimate.
that's the one.
Telling that for anyone.
See how big these windows are? They go from the floor. Oh, is there not more people?
We had more interest expressed, but these are the proposals that came in.
It makes no sense.
How many walkthroughs, how many people did you have walkthrough?
I have to look back at the sign-in sheet, but I think we have probably at least half a dozen contractors.
Wow,
Okay.
must have thought it was maybe too much for them to handle or timing or who knows?
For the lighting, the bid is 87,971 and 55 cents.
That's
Jack Morris.
Jack Morris.
87,971, did you say?
And 55 cents.
Got it.
We had a unique design on lights that are there. They're not only lights, but they are also heat ducts. They're actually light like this, and around, you'll look at the frames, actually see a vent that's plugged into that, and that more than one person looked at that and just kind of shook their head. So that might be why we
Up and down or shook it back.
Maybe one,
why we don't have any more bids than that, so. This is for the secure entrance, and this is one where we asked that they look at both entrances and give us a proposal. It's not to say you're gonna change entrances, but we did at least want to know what kind of cost difference there would be. So the modifications to our current entrance, and so that's the south side of the county building where we enter now, total cost 94,800. Alternatively, if we were to convert the Houghton Avenue facing entrance, the total cost for that is $29,750.
Wow,
So
9,000
$29,750. So in this case, and it may be true as well with Three Rivers, you do have the option of calling in the bidder and discussing this. Okay, why is this so much less? We get our security people in here as well and talk about what the configuration would look like and determine which one of these approaches would work best. And I don't know, obviously, without talking to Jack Morris, just exactly what goes into the south side. Why is that one so much more? It probably has to do with the slope on the concrete that's coming in
That's what I'm
and the
thinking.
necessity of, correcting that so that we have the entrance. And of course, with the main or the other big component to that is the door itself. And having that automated button that people can push in the width of the doorways and so on, but we'd have to talk to him directly to know for sure. This last one is for the ADA compliant restrooms, and these are two restrooms on the first floor in that corridor as you enter the building that would be converted to be ADA compliant,
By the elevator.
right? This one I'm curious about because they were, it's freaked about that. Total cost $100,860,
100,001.
$860.
That. Jack Morris.
Also Jack Morris,
The bathrooms?
yes.
Wonder why it's so expensive?
Well, there's plumbing issues, there's lighting issues, and the width of the stall that we need to have in there is going to cause, at least in the men's room, one urinal will have to be removed and another one probably moved over to accommodate the size of the stall that we would need to be ADA compliant.
Yeah.
There's also issues with the sink and the ability to maneuver around that sink if you're in there. We have one sink in there that clearly will not work and will have to come out. And so there's probably complications with that. And the lighting in there also had some other challenges that they identified. So I do want to add all these up.
Well,
go ahead, Commissioner Scott, while he's adding.
well, I think it's gonna have to, I'm looking at that Three Rivers thing. All they're doing is asking us for an extension, so we might as well separate the boilers out. I don't, well,
agree.
first of all, JMC is not gonna do the boilers,
Right.
okay? So we might as well just go ahead and lay out an extension, some kind of extension for this other guy, but let Three Rivers know we're laying out an extension for him to give us a firmer price. You gotta do the same thing. if you want to bid on it, you gotta do the same thing in the same amount of time.
Yeah.
And so that we got apples to apples here, the
Yeah.
best you can. If you don't want to, that's fine, you don't have to, but I would think they would. As far as I'm concerned with the rest of it, let's just do it. Go with the best window.
How much is it?
We can afford all that projects. We know that boiler's gonna cost some money. And that might exceed $1 million. And if we do, then we can look at a different way to finance the remainder if we have to. But these are firm enough prices right here. We can go ahead with 4 or 5 projects right now, get them on the books, get contracts written up. We don't have other bidders on it. We've already done it out there. So,
Go ahead.
that's where I'm at.
Tim, what was your final?
A grand total for all 4 of those projects, subject to, double checking my math, $945,131.55.
Was that, what entrance did you use there? Did you use
I
the,
used the biggest number, so I mean, it could be less than that if the other entrance met everybody's criteria.
I'm gonna agree with Commissioner Scott. I think we need to put an extension on the boiler, put that back out for RFP. Obviously, these costs are much higher than I anticipated, but everything is this day and age, and I think that this will, in the long run, this is what these ARPA funds were meant for. In the long run, this is gonna save a lot of money. I did bills here a few months back, and the utility bills on that building were unreal. Let alone talking to numerous employees who are hot, cold. We need to take care of that building. I would like more information on that entrance. That's a pretty big difference there, and the front used to be the entrance. So, did you have something else?
Yeah, I'd just say that maybe the windows are a little higher than I thought, but everything else I think we're right in that ballpark. Now the difference beyond the entrances, there's already a ramp in the front. Everything's right there. Basically, they're just gonna change the doors out. Cause the ramp, everything's acceptable, but everything in the back has to be built new. So.
Right, yeah, and demo,
Demo out,
there.
yeah, everything else, So, I'm fine with the back entrance. I think it's working better than the front entrance. I mean, I came here for years and, I think it works fine in the back. I just soon do something with the stairway out front so people quit using it, trying to use it. I parked across the street all the time and when it was the front entrance and played dodgeball coming across Fulton Avenue. And so, and I'm not moving any faster. Matter of fact, I'm going slower than I used to. So, but anyways, I think that's the way to move, and then we'll take a look at the boilers as soon as they can do this so that we can get an idea.
Commissioner Wiltie?
I'm just extremely disappointed with this whole process. We were sure to maximize the exposure of this to as many eyes as possible. I mean, we're a county government and a job like this, I just can't, it blows my mind on a window project like this. One bid, I mean, everything, one bid. That's tough for me to swallow, being in this field for 20 some years. You never go with one bid. And
Well, the assessment center trust was one bid, JMC. The annex building was one bid, JMC. We put it out to a lot of different people. We made phone calls to people. They didn't want to bid it. You just can't twist their arm to come up here and bid it. Three Rivers, I'm surprised Three Rivers came up here. They're a big outfit, and I'm glad to see that they threw a bid at it, but we just haven't got any luck with local contracts. How many bidders did you have at the transit?
yeah, there wasn't a lot.
No,
And just.
there just isn't.
I was just.
Address that point. The RFPs were directly sent to a number of qualified companies. And we did get calls back, but also we not only advertised it locally here in our local press, but Builders Exchange in Traverse City and Lansing publicized it as well. And that's how I think we got one of those bids at Transit from, I think it was Precision Door or something on Traverse City. I don't know where else or what more we can do. I mean, just as far as, even sending it directly to contractors in hopes of getting a proposal.
My time here, I think the most competitive bid we had was when we bid out carpeting. I think we had about five carpet shops that bid against that, and that was about it. Other than that, we're lucky to get two.
Commissioner Simmons, did you have something?
Yeah, these projects are pretty small for large contractors. If you're, all these added together is only 945,000. That's these projects except the boilers, 945,000, that's small jobs. And big contractors are looking for big jobs.
It's kind of in between. It's big for smaller contractors and it's small for large contractors. So I mean, I see what you're saying.
I know, but sometimes a lot of the small contractors work for the large contractors.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's Commissioner Mayhew.
So what we gotta do?
Which is what?
We're gonna do the front.
Are you guys okay with moving forward and putting the boiler system back out for RFP? Gotta get it. Okay, so can we put the boilers, go ahead, Commissioner Simmons.
Yeah. So Commissioner Scott, were you talking about the back entrance?
As far as I'm concerned, let's go with the back entrance. And energy, the most energy efficient windows, the lighting, the back door, and the ADA bathroom. Just the amount of money that Tim added up. That's what I'm saying. Let's go forward with this. You want to change the.
I'd like to see it come through the front door personally, but that's
What-
personal preference.
I would like to see why, like, what's the difference? What? Front versus back, like, what does Mr. Stein have to say about that? I guess I don't know really who to ask. What does employees have to say about that? What?
Well, first of all, I think what needs to be understood is we're gonna be a single entrance building again,
Correct?
okay? We're gonna stay single entrance. If we put it in the front, there's no option to come in the back door. Back years ago, before we put security in this building, you could come in any door.
That's right.
So you could park right behind the back here, and you could walk right in the door. You didn't have to walk down the sidewalk. You will have to walk down the sidewalk. If
Want me
you-
to park
This-
the other,
Were you done, Commissioner?
Well, you
Scott?
can park across the street, that's fine, but back in the day, and probably when you're referencing, back when we used the front door, but you didn't have to use the front door. You could use any door. You could park in the jail parking lot and walk in the southwest corner. You could park in
I
the
know.
back of the building and walk in the southeast corner. Okay? All I'm saying is,
I'm listening.
It's a longer
all I'm
walk.
saying is it's gonna be a long walk all the way around the building
Commissioner Simmons.
for the public.
I made my comments, I have nothing else to say.
Yes.
Oh, no, I run security, it's one of the meetings over there, I made one. And the head bailiff wanted to use the front because of security. They got room to put up like a bulletproof glass, put the guy behind it. In the hallway, there's no room. In like the lobby or whatever you call it. At that meeting, that's where they wanted it. And I'm saying, why not ask them?
Yeah.
If they still want that or they don't.
Well, we should have input, I guess. Tim, what are you recommending here?
There's time, and the questions about why the price difference, we would have to bring in Jack Morris to explain that, and we can ask him in. That was actually part of the RFP, that you might be asked to come in and talk about your proposal. So we can certainly do that, and getting input from security, I mean, certainly there's time we can do that. And it may be me talking to security directly or having them come here. Maybe having Rick here would be beneficial for the full board to hear his thoughts. So whatever approach you want to make, my only requirement would be that it gets wrapped up by our second December regular meeting so that we can get it under contract.
Can these conversations and can they be present next week at the meeting? Can you ask?
We'll call them in. Yeah.
That's what I would like. So you can think of more questions and gather some more data and maybe in the meantime, Tim, you can get a little bit more research on front versus back and.
Right. And one of the things that Commissioner Scott reminds me is he's talking about everybody coming to the front. We would need to probably designate at least one other accessible parking slot out in the front. I think I don't think there's any out there now. There used to be.
There used to be a couple.
Yeah.
When we took them out, we'd have to put them back in again.
Right. And I don't know, because I don't go in over there, if there's a curb cut there where you can get like a wheelchair up it, or would a
Yeah, I
curb
think
cut need to
there
be
is.
made?
I can't remember.
I think there is.
I think there is, but I'm not sure.
Isn't that the one where you have to go out onto Main Street? Or not Main Street, but
Onto
the
the-
side?
To do the parking lot a little bit.
Yeah.
Go in the side.
I thought there was something with
sidewalk.
So, yeah.
I think the back is safer as well. I mean, 100%, versus coming across the street there, Main Street. And plus Main Street with the reconstruction, it is probably even more congested.
We can listen to security, and if they need a modification for glass or something like that, maybe there's a way to do that there. Maybe we just need a lot more glass there. Maybe we need a little turntable, little console or something. I don't know. That might.
Commissioner Simmons.
We wait until the 26th to make the final decisions. That means you've got 1, 2, 3 business days to do contract.
I got a text message that says there's a curb cut up front, so.
What's that mean?
Tom Spencer sent me said there is a curb cut up front.
Well, I think we had
He's
time.
saying there is. He goes by there to go to the
You know,
gym every day.
if we have them at next week's meeting, all of our questions could be answered and then we can make that's a meeting we are able to vote on. So I think we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, we can have a resolution ready to go, and you don't have to adopt it if there are further questions, but I think be very good for you to hear as a both pros and cons, particularly from Rick.
Correct. Go ahead.
No, this is a good conversation. What I'd like to see though, too, Tim, could you send all the stakeholders, even, from the sheriff's department, granted, they're not in there, but they're in and out of the building a lot, to the courts. We got Karen's office, Breck's office, try equalization, just to get their input and see what they think. I mean, I was at that meeting with Commissioner Mayhew and yeah, secure, that was what was brought up, that they'd like to see it out front. I'd like to see if, and maybe some departments won't say anything, but maybe we will get some input. I'd just like to see what people are thinking.
Perfect. Thank you.
By email, and we have a department head meeting on Monday morning, and I'll bring it up there too and see what kind of comments we get.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, board and committee appointments, Land Bank Authority.
Okay, so you've got several of them in front of you. These are all seats that are due to expire at the end of this year and would need to be reappointed or new participants solicited to fill the seats. What distinguishes this group from a group of your special committees is this. Each of these that we're going to talk about next either has a statute or an ordinance or interlocal agreement tied to it that sets terms of office, tells us who has to fill which seats, whatever other requirements there might be. In January, at your organizational meeting, we've got 3 special advisory committees that were appointed. We have transit, we have housing, and we have the budget committee. Maybe missing one, but those 3 come to mind right away. Oh, the opioid settlement committee. Those are special committees of the board that the board appoints by term. And these terms expire at the end of the board terms. So you'll see that slate come up in January. This group have seats that, again, they're expiring at the end of the year. Planning Commission, we have 2 members, Mike Kelly and Chad Beck. You can move Mike Kelly's mark from no reply to yes. We determined that today. So he is interested in reappointment, as is Chad Beck. That would be to a 3-year term. On the Zoning Board of Appeals, you've got 2 members, Robert Caseman and Linda Miller, who have indicated they would like to be reappointed. The Construction Board of Appeals, no reply, but going back on my notices, I'm not sure I contacted the 3 of them, so we may see them next meeting. Parks and Recreation, Robert Griffin Jr. and Rich Havlin have indicated they'd like to be reappointed. Land Bank, Sue Delahanty, John Dancer, and Scott Bell. And then on the Economic Development Corporation, Commissioner Wiltsey is filling a seat. Did not hear back from Tiffany Schneider Cups. We'll reach out to her again, and if she's interested in the next round, she could be reappointed. But unless you want to advertise for each of these positions, each of these incumbents otherwise has indicated a willingness to be reappointed. And if you were so willing, resolutions will be drawn up for next week.
In the past, we just, if they wish to continue, we just continue, correct?
Yes.
And then if they resign, that's when we put it out.
You have. Now, there is no expectation of automatic reappointment. So if you did need turnover in any of these seats, that's your call. But exactly what the chair just explained, in the past, had your incumbents asked for reappointment, you've accommodated that.
Yeah, I'd like to continue with that. Commissioners? Yes. Commissioner Scott, do you have anything?
No, we have an open spot on the website. If people want to sign up for something that, and a vacancy that comes available, we can look at that. As far as these go, I don't have a problem with it. I know the gentleman on the Construction Board of Appeals, which meets very, very little.
It hasn't met since I've been here.
Yeah, I think other than Bruce Beach, they're new to that, right? Isn't that the Bruce Beach?
He's on land bank,
Boy, is this a different one then?
but maybe he's on that also.
Yeah, he's on
He
both.
could be
He's
on
on
that
both,
one as well, yeah.
Because these are all builders and engineers. I would say that I can speak for Mike Page and Lamp, and I would bet that they would want to be reappointed, but you can always reach out again. Is this something we vote on next week?
Right, so next round of meetings,
Okay.
we'll have them.
All right.
I didn't see that. What's that?
Construction Board of Appeals, bottom of the first page.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I don't think that's on my, okay. No, I think we just need to continue with what we're doing. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Item D, jail meal expense.
Well, and
Go ahead.
in our law enforcement meeting, we brought it up, and I mean, we talked about it last meeting a little bit, and we brought it up at the law enforcement meeting temporarily. They're using one of the local restaurants. We talked about some of the parameters that would be needed. This is something we'd have to follow some guidelines as far as menu goes, or nutritional value, but it isn't that stringent. And we'd have to have a company or contractor that would deliver, because we don't have the means to run out and get. So, but I think because it's gonna be, it doesn't appear that we're going to, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're gonna try to work in-house. We're gonna try to do a contract basis.
Correct,
Outside
correct.
rather than inside. So, I would say because of the total cost over the course of a year, I think we should allow other businesses to have a chance to bid this. One of the points I made, and this would be lunch and dinner, not breakfast. Breakfast is being covered. Okay. So lunch and dinner now, so one of the other things we talked about is one day you might have 10. One day you may have 5, next day you might have 2, and someday you might not have any. And it depends on when they're hauled out to the other county, whether or not they're staying all day. Maybe they're going to be bailed out and they'll stay the day. Maybe they just don't have enough people to take that day, and they'll hang around. So maybe you might have 5 lunches, but only 3 dinners, or no dinners, So there's a few different parameters. I think if we just lay this out to some of the other vendors in the area and say, can you do this? Just the lighting project and come up with it, you know, the thing I said is, as far as deliveries go, I didn't know even Rancheros delivered, and maybe they don't deliver to anybody else, but they would deliver to us. I don't know. Do they have a delivery service?
No,
Okay, so they're delivering to us on exception.
correct.
Yeah, okay, well, and that was my point too, is if I was a restaurant in town that I don't deliver, but I knew that I had a pretty good chance I was gonna be able to every day deliver, then why not provide that service for that contract, just like they're doing? But gee whiz, we got pizza places in town, they deliver every day, no matter what, you know? And the ones I know of have full menus. So there's different nutritional value, they're not getting pizza every night or every day, you know? You can get a burger, you can get a salad or whatever. We're not saying they order by choice. We're just saying everybody's gonna get the same that day, whatever, but it's gonna fulfill the nutritional value that we have to because of Department of Corrections or whatever.
Commissioner Wiltie, do you want to expand on that?
I understand the challenges that we have right now because we are limited staffing and we can't go out and get food, but if I wasn't in the shoes I am and knowing what's going on and I was just a normal tax paying resident and I found out that we were feeding people who are breaking the law and going to our jail rancheros, I probably would be asking questions wondering why. And I understand again, the challenges, we can't go out and, you know, pick up the food. But one thing I brought up was, you know, why can't we make a bunch of sandwiches and date them? They're good for so many days and give an inmate a sandwich and an apple. I just would like us to look into some more options of that instead of this going and spending money at rancheros. But on the other side of things, I do know that there's the challenges of, you know, what we can make and what we can't make. And Paul brought up a point, like, because we had talked about just frozen dinners in a microwave. And then Paul brought up the side, well, what happens if someone gets sick because the dinner didn't get cooked to 160 degrees and we don't have a safety served person on site. And so there's challenges. I'm not a fan of this feeding our inmates rancheros or we gotta get this figured out. And I don't know what the answer is right now.
I'm gonna agree with you. I'll let you go here in just a minute, Commissioner Simmons. I'm gonna agree with you, Commissioner Wiltie, as far as feeding our inmates, restaurant food. I understand the dilemmas as well, as far as it being unpredictable with the amount of inmates. You know, my only background is healthcare. You know, patients come in the middle of the night. We had sandwiches. Obviously we have a kitchen there, but we had sandwiches in the refrigerator. They were switched out on a daily basis, but we had snacks. We had drinks, we had stuff to get people through the night. There's gotta be a better solution. Have we reached out to any other facilities to see what they do? Restaurants this day and age are, everything is just so costly that there's gotta be a better solution here versus, restaurant food. And still meeting the nutritional value and not running into problems. Commissioner Simmons.
Yeah, I thought there was, did you bring up what they call it, safety serve or something like that, that people can be trained and just
Safe
eat the
serve.
stuff
Safe.
and, huh?
Yeah, safe serve.
Yeah, safe serve. Then why can't we get them trained to do that? I mean, just throw it in the microwave, nuke it and take it to the cell.
I'm sure it's not that simple, but, and I understand their staffing issues, but there's gotta be a solution. I would like to see what other places are doing. I don't know.
What was conveyed to us was for the same reason they can't go out and pick up the food, they can't go into the kitchen away from the inmates, away from the site of the inmates and make the food. Now, one idea I had before, and I like the idea of sandwiches and dating them and stuff like that. Is one thing I said is, can I hire somebody 1 or 2 days a week to come in and use our kitchen and make prepared foods? And we put a refrigerator right in the intake area where the sandwiches could be kept cold and then serve when be, you know, and make up 3 days worth of sandwiches ahead of time. You come in and if I know a cook out there that's certified and everything like that, and they came into my kitchen, that we made sure that the health department inspected and everything, because the kitchen worked for 10 years, or 14 years, that kitchen has worked. So I know the kitchen works. If it has to be inspected, it has to be inspected. And there are people out there that are safe serve certified. Hey, we hire one of them, come in, work 2 hours, make sandwiches up for the next 3 or 4 days. You know? I don't know why that wouldn't work.
Tim, what are you recommending?
But first, what you're seeing as far as our experience so far, it's reflective of the first month and a half of bills that came in. The department was running short one person, and really they didn't have a lot of options at that point. Yeah, obviously what's been discussed here tonight, I think is very constructive. I think that helps just in terms of generating ideas. At this stage, I would really ask the undersheriff about the practicalities of this and to investigate, you know, what will work, and then come back with options. Let's just say I feel pretty confident in saying, not speaking for the undersheriff, but they probably just hadn't had the time up until now to really look into this and resolve it. At least not since October 1. So I think it would be very useful for you to see those options and see what costs are tied to them. I definitely think something better than ad hoc, you know, going to one place or another place. I'd rather see specific agreement that says we're going to provide, 2 meals a day for, whatever cost that might be. But that's, again, up to your discretion and working with the sheriff's office to figure out what's the best approach.
Undersheriff, do you have anything to add?
I did ask the question based on the conversations that have been going on, where some of these things come from. I do have, I was provided with the operations inspection form where some of this stuff is addressed as far as the health department and menus. And so I will scan that and email it to every one of you so that you have that for your input. And then some of these ideas can be plugged into that inspection thing. And if there's something else out there, I understand some of the different options that are put in there, but I'm just afraid it's gonna trigger some of these other things that we currently don't have the ability to do. So again, it would be part of a discussion based off of what this is and how that applies to the circumstances. But we just don't currently, with the staffing levels, have the ability for that one individual, especially if we've got meals on a weekend, for them to leave the intake area, run the risk of something happening to the inmate while he's out of visual sight, to get him a meal. So does the sandwiches solve the problem? Again, we have to get an answer somewhere. Does that trigger some of these things that I will send to you as far as the inspection and some of the requirements that come down from WLC?
So when do you guys meet again?
Oh, another month, 2 weeks. 2 weeks, just before the next whole meeting.
So in the meantime, what's the plan for the meals? What are we still doing what we're doing?
Yeah, we're doing the best that we can as far as when meals present themselves. Breakfasts are covered, whether they're provided by Gladwin before they come, or we have the option for breakfasts, and then lunch and dinners are ordered out if we have to provide them. As we discussed during the law enforcement committee circuit court day the other day, it just worked out for us that the activity and the court going back and forth, we had 9 inmates cycle through the system as far as having to make court appearances, and we didn't have to serve any meals that particular day. But there are other days where we've had to, again, serve 5 meals because people were there through either a lunch or a dinner period. So it's kind of like gasoline. You just never know from day to day we're gonna run into.
So I guess my question to you guys would be, do you want to, in the meantime, until you guys meet again and hopefully come up with a solution, or would you like to put it out for RFP for bids for local restaurants?
No, I'm matter of fact, might just this brainstorm is just exactly that. I'm just sitting here spitballing, brainstorming. I'm not, the sheriff is in charge of the welfare of the inmate. I'm fine with them making the decision. I just kind of threw out some ideas that were on top of my head. That's all I'm after, you know. You guys want to make something, but I just think if we're gonna continue to buy outside, I think just the aggregate value is gonna dictate that we have to bid it. Because the aggregate value over the next year, because we know we have to do it all year. And if we're going to do this, if we're gonna keep doing this on a permanent basis, then I think because of the value of it, it has to be bid out.
Tim, did you
That's
have,
the only place on that.
I'm sorry, Tim, were you doing something? I didn't, a figure?
Not related to this topic, but yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, Commissioner Simmons.
Maybe Monday through Friday, we do Meals on Wheels.
Commissioner,
I don't know if anybody ever reached out, and that just came through my mind too, because I mean, they serve meals to homes in a safe manner and they're good for a period of time. Have you, Paul, did you have something to add to that?
No, I was just gonna ask the question, do you know, do they take or do they make it based on a schedule? You know, do they know each day how many houses they have to go? Would they be able to, on a notice, come up with 2 or 3 meals?
Well, yeah, but they don't know how many's gonna come in each day for lunch. I mean, the public also comes there for, I've been there for meals, so, and their meals are very, very good and they're very, very reasonable.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if they had that ability, if it was like a you know, I know tomorrow I've gotta go to these many houses to deliver.
I believe that is a number, but as far as they also serve the public that come in for daily lunches, I mean, and that's gotta be, you know, obviously they may be able to predict, but not an exact number.
And they got a certain number. I have tenants that get it. And from time to time, they don't tell them if they're not gonna be home. So all of a sudden they end up taking meals back, you know.
Maybe it's
It probably gets wasted, but you know, but they make it every day. They make one thing, and that's what it is. Same with when you sit down and eat, right?
Mhm, yeah.
They only offer one meal to everybody. It's not on a served basis. You know.
Maybe you guys could spark some conversation there. It's a possibility. It'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, corrections officer job description.
You've got that job description on your tablets again. I did put this out into the union and to the sheriff and undersheriff. Of course, they saw it last time I was up. I had no comment come back. And I suggest that you give thought to adopting it.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I think we should adopt this in the next meeting.
They have had an opportunity to look at it, correct, undersheriff?
I was just provided today, I was gonna add this to the point of the conversation, some input that came across to me today, as a matter of fact. So I was gonna reach out to you, go over that input. If any changes are put into effect, we would highlight them from this one. If it does come to fruition, we still vote on it next Thursday.
Your corrections officers have had an opportunity to look at this as well?
Correct.
Okay,
And that's where the input came.
Okay.
in. Just hit my desk today, so they need to digest it a little bit more and then. Like I said.
do you have any, so there's time between now and next week? You guys okay with that? Commissioner Simmons, did you have something?
No, not a thing.
Okay, item F, 24/7 road patrol update.
Well, once again, I'll speak, because we brought this up. The person that's, the new hire that's in academy will be graduating out December 14th.
Okay, good.
And they'll be right in a car that week, or at least on duty that week. And they'll have to course ride with the training officer. And when they feel that it's ready to roll on their own, fine. I was happy to hear that the sheriff reached out to Isabella County and because they have a number of layoffs here the first of the year. But They already got jobs. But we're advertising and we're trying to fill 2 more vacancies. And the sheriff did say that he is looking at and contingency planning that maybe 1 out of 2 shifts could run. You know, and of course, you know, because there's 2 shifts, night shifts. 1 out of the 2 night shifts, because we would have numbers for that. So I thought that was pretty good.
What do you mean 1 out of 2? I guess further explain.
Well, there's A shift and B shift in the daytime, and there's A and B shift in nighttime.
Okay.
Because to cover 7 days. So if an A shift could be covered at night, then we'd have 24/7 well, we would have 24/4. 24/3, whatever. It's what is it, like 4 days 1 week, 3 days the next is a shift. It'd be something like that. Something like we talked back 2 years ago, back when we had a lot of vacancies, and we were asking, could you run a Thursday, Friday, Saturday shift at night? You know, that's just a suggestion that I had. That's all. I'm not trying to say do that, but you know, those are the nights that our population swells and stuff like that. I don't know. But when we asked the sheriff, he says he is looking into it. So I thought that was a bright, a light toward the end of the tunnel.
Commissioner Wiltie?
Yeah, I was very happy to hear that, the sheriff talked with Isabella County. It was too bad there wasn't something that could have came out from there. And we all know the importance of this. You know, we just had another millage pass. December, that tax bill has been sent out now. Our residents are paying for it. But yet also, we need to know for sure that the sheriff department is working hard at this to fill these positions. They continue to tell us they are. We do have the 1 candidate graduating on the 14th. The sheriff did say he's got, I believe, 3 or 4 other applicants that possibly have interest in getting into academy, but he was going through those. I just, again, you know, stated the fact, the importance of, you know, having as many qualified officers as we can right now that our residents are paying for on the road. I asked the sheriff today in the meeting, as I did in an email. I've asked him to send out a number of times for explanations of what our current staffing is doing and why we cannot have any road patrol after 6 p.m. I still haven't received any specific answers to that, other than sheriff has continued to tell me to trust him and that he needs these people in the office doing administration work. I don't know how many people that is exactly. And I brought up again today, which I brought up in the past. I'm not in law enforcement, but I know Ogemaw County's the size of our county. I kind of have an idea of what our crime level is. And my continued question is, and it's been the question I've asked when we talked about command, is we need this many people in the office during the day doing this work. And I don't even know what that number is, because I can't get anything specific of what all our deputies are doing. But it just seems to me, and again, I don't know their job exactly. I'm going off of how I feel. I've been in law enforcement as a reserve officer when I was younger. I saw how that department ran. And I'm just trying to still get some of those answers, you know, some of those questions answered. But the sheriff said he's working hard on trying to get some more road patrol. And I asked, you know, well, we have this one person, can you guarantee, or do you have any idea when that possibly could start? And, you know, he doesn't have an answer on that, but kind of like Craig said, that he's optimistic that hopefully soon we'll get some more coverage. And that would be, you know, a PM, a night shift.
Undersheriff, maybe you could answer this. Is with this one graduating December 14th, does that take us down to 1 vacancy or 2? Okay.
2 to fill to get to the 8 under the millage. The 8 total.
Because I'm gonna tell you, this is hot topic right now, especially since everybody did get their tax bill. I hit a couple meetings this week and I was hit pretty hard with questions on people seeing that 24/7 road patrol millage and the cost. We appreciate the updates. I agree that I think if we can report out there, or you guys can report out there that you got 2 or 3 or 4 nights a week, I think that would help, calm people a touch. Continuing to advertise, continuing to attempt to get, deputies is greatly appreciated, but right now it's definitely a hot topic out there in the public. Commissioner Simmons.
I have a question for the undersheriff, because I have no idea. When they graduate from the academy, how long are they in training before they're allowed to go on their own? And what kind of training do they receive?
Well, the training, once they graduate, is what they call the field training officer program. We send officers, deputies through to be able to train new hires, new officers out on the street. It's 10 weeks, so there's phases of the training, first phase, second phase, third phase. Normally you move them around from day shift to night shift to get them the most experience as far as total operations. And then the last phase, what you call a shadow, where your training officer shadows that individual to make sure that they're competent enough to go out safely and effectively do the job. I want to say that's 10 weeks. A lot of times what you'll see is that your new officer will be acclimated during the day because it's easier to learn your area of responsibility, and then cycle down the nights to learn how to operate at nighttime. That's when we'll start to see us, as we did before, cycle back into more coverage on the road. We're still providing the 24/7 service. We do not have officers administratively in the office the whole time during the shift. Every single deputy that is working is also taking calls for services, going out, responding to crashes, calls for service, whether it's civil, criminal. Because of the numbers that we have, we can't have just an administrative lieutenant that sits in there and does that all day. But like when the previous 2 lieutenants went back to the road to do our field training, they also have these added responsibilities, lean, that type of thing, that they also have to accomplish for us in order to meet our goals and expectations. So I hope that clarifies a little bit that we don't have body other than myself and the administrative assistant that are sitting in the offices for their entire shift. They could be sitting there and the sergeant today had this, he's doing something, gets a call, and he's got to go because he's the backup or he's the one available to go and take that call. So I hope that kind of clarifies a little bit.
Yeah, I have one more question on that. I know these people on road patrol, they have body cams on them, right?
Correct.
So do these training officers review these body cams to make sure, when they're out there on their own, to make sure that they're well within the law and not doing something illegal, that they're not even aware they're doing something illegal? Are these body cams looked at to ensure that the new
You're kind of
deputies
getting
on,
into a trick bag with that question, and if you're asking if it's for the new persons, the new officers are with the training officers, so they're seeing it firsthand regardless of the body camera or not. So they're not turned out on their own until they've successfully completed the field training. We have a policy as far as use of the body camera and how it applies to different circumstances. We're kind of in a trick bag. You can't just review body camera video to critique an officer's performance. You can do it as far as compliance with policy. You can do it as far as requests for FOIA, incident review, those type of things. But as far as for actual performance, you can't just go in there and arbitrarily just start, because then you're singling people out. It's just the practice from a law standpoint that's been built into these policies that we've implemented also into ours. So that was a long-winded answer to your question. It's a trick bag. So no, we don't review it for performance. We review it for other reasons.
Commissioner Mayhew. Nothing?
Nothing.
Are you getting it from your public?
Oh, yes. But I'm catching it for the dogs and everything else. It's not just this.
Okay, More to come on it. Keep us updated if you would, under sheriff, so we can continue to pass that along and law enforcement committee. Sheriff move date amendment.
In the appropriations resolution, we put a deadline for the move of the sheriff's office over to the correction building of November 30th. Tremendous progress has been made. You may have seen the vehicles are already parked over there. I think the undersheriff is actually working there now. That's where your office is.
Correct.
Oh,
But there are still heavier furniture pieces that need to be moved, like the sheriff's desk, for instance. Best to probably have people who are trained to do that, move it rather than risking injury to our people. They do have a move date. I think it was December 10th.
Correct.
When they were going to be there to move that final group. So because that's written in the appropriation resolution, it would be appropriate to send or to pass another resolution that amends that date. I would say December 15th, just to be practical about it. And we complete it that way. And then we do what we need to do to weatherize the building that the sheriff's in. Make sure that the files are safe.
yes.
Hands up real high. What is that gonna do for us? With all of our
How do we get access?
files and store it? I mean, that whole. How many 2 rooms back there are filled with our files?
So however you get access now, you would continue.
We walk in the door and ask them to let us in.
Well,
We'll talk to Tom.
Well, I'm just, is the weathering gonna
Impact your,
impact our, yeah.
We'll make sure it doesn't. I mean, that's the whole idea though, that building, as long as it's there and we have storage needs, that we would use it for that purpose. We don't have people sitting there, so we don't have to keep it at 72 degrees, you know? And I don't know what else is over there that we would shut off, but you know, whatever we can do to save the utility costs is what we want to do.
is the renovations done to make this move?
Enough. We still have that partition wall with an RFP that'll go out for that, but they can work around, you know, personnel that are in there to make that happen. There were some other things we had talked about, a window and things of that nature that'll be addressed as well, but that gets them in that building. It also gets everybody under that roof over there as well, increases safety for our corrections personnel.
I have a que-
Oh, go ahead.
I've been a big opponent of trying to get this building closed down as soon as the sheriff's department moved over. I mean, we had another boiler system we have to run and maintain. We have a water bill. So currently your stuff, I've had to walk through that, is in the back jail area, right? Where
In the
people
old
used to have-
cells.
And there's heat on back there?
No,
Okay, so the heat thing won't matter.
no, I mean. That's pretty shut off. I mean, that's shut off, right? Meaning no heat
Yeah,
even
there's
gets
nothing,
back
right?
there,
No heat.
really.
Yeah, it's minimal if any is back there. The
Yeah.
temperature is definitely, I mean, the locker room that's back there is supplemental heat with a floor unit during the colder months, and it's fairly cold, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Because we
I don't
still have
think
to
it would be-
operate out of that facility because of our property room and the size of it. So until we can get some of those logistics figured out, and then we also have, much like the clerk's office, the prosecutor's office, we have a whole part of that facility, which is our record storage. All the required documents that we're required as far as reporting. Again, that's already back there in this cold storage. I think more what you're talking about, what's gonna happen with them front offices and turning that.
I don't think it's gonna affect our stuff at all. It's not really any different than
Probably when we go in January, but.
whatever. We wear our coats now anyways.
So,
You're in and out.
well, again,
we don't have to use flashlights, that.
Yeah, I will not.
Again, a building that is old, costs a lot to run, and the transition of what we're doing. I really think we need to do all we can, and we need more communication, it sounds like now with the sheriff. You said something about 911 had some.
They have some backup fire radios in there.
Did you see if they can move those over here?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk to Jesse yet, but I don't foresee this being a problem. Part of what her concern was, they have the tower that's over there, and somehow this is all, you know, kind of one big unit, I don't know. But she just wanted to make sure we weren't just shutting it down and tearing down the building. She's got equipment in there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, every time we talk about moving, somebody says we're tearing that building down.
Yeah.
For 6 years now, we've tried to tell people we're not tearing the building down,
So,
but they keep saying it.
Commissioner Wiltie?
so I just think the goal that we need to have is, again, this whole reason we're doing this is to save money, be more efficient.
Right.
Now the sheriff's right there, sheriff's department's right there at the jail. The building needs to be closed down. You know, we all know that if that building is still operational, even at 55 degrees, that boiler could all of a sudden one day go to poop, and it's gonna cost $15,000 to get it back running. You know, we need to do whatever we need to do to get that closed down, but we have to be in agreement on that. But my opinion on this is it needs to be closed down to 100% cold storage as soon as possible.
I think we're all made that decision when we decided to pay for the renovations.
I mean, if,
We just need to
and I
make it
haven't
move.
looked
We
at-
just need to make, excuse me, we just need to make it happen and make sure we're nearing that date.
And if nothing else, message today is, I mean, it's in motion. There's been a lot that's happened. We just need to finish this last piece.
I appreciate the update. I didn't know that the undersheriff was over there. Do you have anything? And then I'll go to Commissioner Scott. Do you have anything, Paul? Are you okay over there? Are you?
Just like everything else, it's an adjustment. It's, but yes, I am operational now in the administrative part. I have been for a week now. I moved everything, majority of stuff on Friday after Thanksgiving, and Monday I got operational on computer and that type of stuff, so.
Good. Commissioner Scott?
all I'm saying is, I haven't looked at the fire radios. If it's one small room and I could put a heating pure in there, keep it 40 degrees. And have a $40 a month bill, you know, and then make sure that there's lights and light switches for anybody that has to go in there and turn on a light. And if I have to put a timer switch on it so the light turns off
We'll figure
when
it out.
after they leave. You know, it's a storage building. We're gotta have lights on it to see. I'm not saying we gotta heat the place.
No one said we need.
And the switch on, and the switch off. Not
Or-
hard.
Well, you got people asking, am I gonna use a flashlight? Well, we need to answer that, and we need to say that, no, you don't have to use a flashlight. We're gonna leave the lights on long enough.
We have a plan. We're moving forward. So let's just extend that deadline and move forward. Strategic planning and negative cash flow.
This flows out of our conversation at the last meeting.
It was.
About negative cash and how as another option, this may tie into our planning efforts. And I don't have a lot more to add to it than that, but just one, for me, from where I sit, the fact that this is getting addressed one way or another is a huge step forward. Would it be optimal to dedicate money and wipe out the negative cash all at once? Absolutely. Am I willing to wait if it takes a couple of years? You know what? You proved to me as a board that you can set a goal like that and accomplish it when we weaned ourselves from the tax revolving fund. With that kind of commitment, and we get the negative cash taken care of, but better than break even, but actually have some cushion there. That's great, and certainly I would have no problem supporting that either. But the purpose for bringing this up would be to get us down to a plan and move forward with it. So whatever that's worth. I know that we've had a number of attempts to knock it out with a resolution. Again, that would be fantastic if we did that, but let's just, again, put ourselves on one path and let's make it happen.
Yeah, I called you after the last meeting and asked this to be put back on because you and I have had a couple different conversations about this. And as we've addressed it with department heads, when a decision is made, whether you like it or not, we move forward. This is continuously brought up and continues to seem to divide us. So I think we all agree that this needs to be taken care of. We voted on this, I believe, twice, at least, with numerous conversations and numerous meetings. Obviously, some of us don't agree with the majority vote. But it was made, we need to move forward. I think we all agree that this needs to be addressed. And this isn't best practice, but we don't all agree with how to resolve this issue. So if we can see something moving forward to resolve this, I guess, how do we come up with a strategic plan? So this doesn't continue, this conversation doesn't continue to come back. And I believe the word was annoyed. to come back to conversation amongst us. I think if we all see a plan, how do we form that plan? What is your best?
And I would advocate for a true strategic plan. We would bring in, we talked about John Amrine at Extension, but we have a number of talented vendors out there that walk organizations like this through strategic plans. And we'll create this, I would say, a 4-year plan to match your term of office, and that we initiate that as soon as we can after the first of the year. And get that process underway. And this will be just one component. And we would talk about things like capital improvements, vehicle rotations and things like that as well. But this would be just one piece of it. And again, from where I said, just to get it addressed, if it's all in one shot, great. If we have to do it over multiple years, fine. But it's just so important that we get it done. And that if we do have a multi-year plan, that we commit to it, we stick to it, we make it happen. Having negative cash is no way to run any organization. And I would really like to see us better than break even. Again, typically organizations will have somewhere upwards of 90 days of cash flow available. We just need to get to zero first, and then we'll talk about 90 days later. But let's get on the path to make it happen.
I guess when you talk that way, it sounds like we're gonna pay more money out to resolve this issue. To an organization to come up with a plan. Why you as a county, the controller / administrator, our auditors, our treasurer, like, I guess I don't understand why a team couldn't come up with a plan.
We absolutely could. The benefit of having an outsider come in is that they don't have any built-in biases. Okay,
Okay,
you may be fine with that. And, I've done strategic plans. I'm confident I could lead you through it. I don't have any hesitation there at all. And with our treasurer, our clerk, sheriff, everybody else who participates being part of that, we can come up with one. All right. The only issue, bringing in somebody from the outside is they don't have our internal biases working. If you're comfortable with it, I'm certainly comfortable with it, would be very excited to lead it. But also keep in mind, we're balancing that with everything else I've got going on. I was looking at the RFPs, got a couple more that we have to set out yet by the end of the year, but in 3 months, we'll have issued more RFPs than we did all of last year. So, that kind of workload, sometimes things like a strategic plan will be delayed, put on a back burner, and maybe not turned out as quickly as we would like. But that being said, I would, be all in on it. I'd be very happy, to lead you through that.
thoughts, Commissioner Simmons?
I like that idea.
What idea?
What you said, lead us through.
Pardon me?
Lead us through.
Him or an external source? The group of stakeholders, or or an external source? What was your opinion, I guess?
Well, it's got a very good point.
Mhm.
The external source has nothing vested here, and their emotions are gone. And I mean, Tim can do it, then you're gonna have that issue of emotions and history, and so the best would be to have an outside source, but I guess I'm looking at money. But it really doesn't matter, I'll be gone in a few days anyway, so spend all the money you want.
I'm asking your opinion.
That's the only thing I see the money thing, but he's got a really good point about not having anything vested in this strategic plan and can go forward. And that individual can just see what's right and what's wrong, where when we have emotions, it's like, well, we really shouldn't do that because then this, that, and the other thing, blah, 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 you know how it goes. So outside source would be the best.
Commissioner Mayhew?
The outside source probably costs more money, unless they get somebody
Yeah.
free
That's what I'm looking at.
from the college. But tonight, we had a lady come in here. And everybody was hip on giving her money. Is that something we have to do?
The
No, assessment center.
assessments, Children's Assessment Center.
Yeah.
Is it a statutory requirement? I think the answer is probably no. Is it something that is very beneficial to law enforcement, to the prosecutor, to others in the community? Absolutely.
I
So
understand.
it's a discretionary expense.
Right, and last year she asked for 3 and we gave her 5.
I think last year she asked for 5. We were gonna give her 3.
No, she asked for 3, we gave her 5.
Okay.
I would say her, but, no. You believe that it's really good. If we have the outside person come in here and say. Right, here's you $5,000 you didn't spend. So. Which way do you go? Just a question I have.
Commissioner Scott.
Well, you didn't wanna bring the cash up to 0 because you wanted to save the money from projects. We just looked at 4 projects here that's gonna only cost us $1 million.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity right now to bring that cash up. And I have brought up a number of ways to pay for another project. And that boiler could be, we could pay for a boiler system over a number of years by doing it. And we can accomplish, now we can take care of the 2 birds right now. $1 million for all the projects, and that's the top projects. If you want to whittle out the entrance and save 50, you can. But 4 projects only cost $1 million. And now you got enough money to do that cash right now. The boiler is still a big question mark. The boiler's gonna cost $1 million. I'm gonna tell you, it costs $1 million. Can we pay for that over 3-4 years of growth money from the tax revolving fund? I'll bet you can. That's all I got to say.
Commissioner Wiltie.
Pretty much same thing I've been saying for months. I don't see any reason for strategic planning needed. We have the means to take care of a major issue we have right now in front of us. That cash needs to be paid. And we move forward with making improvements as needed. And also wisely use our tax revolving money for the purpose that it's there for, is for capital investments.
I guess the question was, do we do external source? Do we stay internal as far as coming up with a strategic plan? I guess Commissioner, I'd forgotten about MSU. You had brought them up in the past, Tim, correct? You didn't feel that there would be a cost there.
Yeah, I don't know if there would be or not. It's through extension. It might be something that they do, for counties, but I haven't inquired about it.
I guess, can we inquire about it?
Yeah.
Gonna be more information to come on this. And the audit has started, correct? Are they in-house?
Yes.
Yeah.
Acceptance of gifts and grants policy.
This actually came up, I'm glad Tracy's here. We had an issue 4 or 5 weeks ago about a grant and reporting requirements and things of that nature, which got me back into our policies. Right now, we have a policy that probably is about 20, maybe 25 years old, that deals with grants. It is very convoluted, to say the least. It would require committees to be set up to evaluate grant requests, to make recommendations, probably a little bit more than what we need. What this policy does is attempts to, first of all, set forward the statute that says the Board of Commissioners has the sole discretion to accept money on behalf of the county. And that would include any kind of grants or gifts, donations of any kind. They need to be accepted by the county. We had some citations in the past in our audit about monies that have come in and weren't received properly. Just recently circulated on social media, we had a county employee accepting a donation that was written in his name. Written, intended for a county project, but written in his name. And that kind of thing is just fraught with danger, to say the least. This policy would establish that all of these gifts, donations, grants must be approved by the board and would be receipted in through the treasurer and through the internal controls that we have in place now. For accepting gifts and grants, some considerations that the board would ask. First, if the grant or gift is appropriate to the needs or mission of the county. We don't want to accept a grant that requires us to set up a whole new program. and then have ongoing costs with it. Whether or not the gift or grant is unrestricted, and if it's restricted, is it flexible enough to maximize its usefulness? Is it irrevocable? If it's revocable, maybe we don't want to accept it. And so those are, it's another consideration to make. Will it impose an additional financial burden on the county? And if so, where does the additional funding come from? A lot of gifts or grants will have matches required. If that's the case, do we accept it? The long-term financial impact, because we set up a program, does that mean, the grant's paying for the first year? And from that point forward, the county's responsible. There were some law enforcement grants years ago that did that. They would pay for the first year or two, but then you would be obligated for something like 8 years to fund the rest of that program. And finally, whether the terms are related to the purpose originally designated, and if it's no longer practical or necessary, are you able to use those funds for another purpose? Those are the types of questions that you would use to evaluate those programs. Again, a policy, just attempting to summarize, this is how we deal with grants and gifts. We don't have employees out individually soliciting things without your knowledge. If monies do come in, they are brought to you, you approve them, and they're receipted in. Letter of thanks maybe goes out, and certainly any reporting requirements for IRS purposes, like our EIN number, we would issue that. But again, just kind of streamlines it and puts it all into one package. Is this vital that you pass it next week? No, if you want to have time to look at it, I think by all means do so. But it is one I think is necessary in terms of accounting of the funds that do pass through the county.
Yeah, I thought we already had this because we had an issue 2 years ago or so from somebody accepting
Right.
monies.
We did state board needs to receive, needs to approve these monies coming in. The policy that we have in place is not very clear about that. And I think this one is more clear.
Commissioner Simmons?
So it's a check or something like that, then it had to be made out to Ogemaw County,
Right,
not to an individual.
right. The only other
Like there's
exception,
Other
a
organizations.
lot of times the check could be made out to the Ogemaw County treasurer because it's going to the treasurer, for processing. That would be the only exception. It should never go into the individual's name, for a county purpose.
Right.
Commissioners?
I think, what you're referencing before was the asking for, it was not
No, it was a
before.
check.
Oh, was it?
It was a check,
I know
yeah.
we talked about departments coming to the commissioners first before you apply for a grant.
No, I'm,
Because of those, a lot of times there's strings attached.
it was a donation. It was a check.
Because we had that issue where we took in and accepted a grant, but we had to put matching funds up,
Commissioner Wiltie?
Okay.
I mean, this is pretty simple. The county function, county employee, and made out to Ogemaw County, cut and dry. It should never be made out to an individual.
Never.
And you just see that in all lines of business and government and, small or big, it's a big deal. And it's just a real simple request. Just make it out to the county.
Right, we're not trying to deter.
No, we want this. It's good. It's good, but just make it
Yes.
Ogemaw County.
Yes, make it legit, make it legal. It's
Well-
common sense.
Parks and Rec has two different entities that feed Parks and Rec.
Yep.
And we have the Friends of the High Banks that was just put in, and we have Friends of the Deer Refuge. And they have their own fundraising. Then in turn, they pay the county for things, So in some cases, that can be done. We talked about this in the law enforcement meeting in regards to the posse. That a separate LLC can be set up as a nonprofit and be friends of the posse. And then you can make donations to that, which in turn would help fund just the posse.
Mr. Simmons, did you have something else?
No, but what you're talking about with others, if you make them out to those 501c3s, that's not making them out to
Right.
an individual.
Right.
Legal
That's
is.
absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think we're all in agreement. Let's see this on for next meeting.
Yep.
Monthly overtime report.
Can you see the spreadsheet on the very last document in here? We have 3 different activities that have overtime budgeted. The road patrol overtime is at 14.5%. We're at the 16.7% mark on the fiscal year, so that one's definitely within range. The corrections overtime, it's at 34%. Only $3,400, but at 34%, so it's running right now after 2 months, about double what's been budgeted here.
Yeah.
So I'll be beginning with the undersheriff, before we do budget adjustments in January for the first quarter, we'll reevaluate this. And if that looks like it's the trend, the true trend, we'll make a recommendation at that point as to what to do. But my first objective would be to keep any adjustment within that activity, so within the corrections budget. If we need to find another 10,000, let's find it in that budget first. If we can't do that, this is part of budget monitoring, then we'll have to look at other options and what we'll do about it. But just after 2 months, so that tells me immediately there's a flag here that we're going to need to address in January.
Anything else, comments?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, item K. You think you wanted something, you wanted the
Yeah,
park or
the county owns Pointer Hill Park out on old M5576 west of town. Of course, that highway, that was a rest area.
Yep.
For the highway back in the old days before I-75.
Yep.
And of course, I-75 got built and that highway's now decommissioned and the park is there. There's still a water pump there. There's no picnic table left. There's no trash can there. The county does have a radio tower there.
Yeah.
And that would have to be separated out and a deeded access to get to it. Resteiners that own the property all the way around it are interested in purchasing. I told them, don't tell me a price or anything like that, because we may have to bid this out. So I don't want you to throw anything at me. Basically, the problem Bob's having is people are parking there, especially like deer season. They park there, they hop over that split rail fence because they think it's state land. And they go walking out there on his property. And like this year, the guy says, well, we're doing it for 5 years. Great. There's probably room enough on there to put a house. I don't know how good it'd be. The driveway is kind of scratchy when you want to pull out of there because you're on top of that hill and you can't see the oncoming traffic. The lookout point that's up on the high ground really looks into Ethan's front living room anymore because Grandpa John built a house right there. Used to be able to see town, but DOT put a freeway bridge in the way. I just think we're cutting the grass up there. Our maintenance guy's going up there every week in the summertime cutting the grass. He's got to load the lawnmower up on the trailer or the pickup and take it up there and cut the grass. And we brought it up to Parks and Rec Committee a year or 2 years ago. There's no value there. I mean, the parks that we have now generate enough money to keep them going. There's nothing there that's going to generate any money. I would think just what, I mean, that's just, it's property that, it was great when there was a highway there, but few people stop there, might stop there for lunch, but it's not worth it.
Tim, do you have anything to add?
I would echo Commissioner Scott. We don't use the property. It's plain and simple. So it might be better to get it back on the tax roll.
Mr. Simmons?
I'd just be concerned about the tower, but
We and the rest of us agree that we'd retain that portion of the property. We have to
okay,
draw a line someplace there,
all right,
get a deeded access saying that we can get to it.
yeah. As long as he.
Bob said he'd probably want to put a a gate up over the existing driveway so people aren't using it.
Yeah,
And I agree with that.
yeah.
As long as we cordon that off, yeah, I don't see them building anything there. They just wanna, it's contingent with, they own all the way around, everything around it, so.
Yeah,
It's small. I would say we'd have to go through the register of deeds office and make sure that there's no contingent on it. That if, if,
That's what I was gonna ask. Have
yeah,
you? Have you
I,
looked
no,
into it?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not. So I don't know if, if the Department of Transportation says if you wanna sell it, they get it back or whatever, if that's the case. But as far as I'm concerned, let's put a gate up and let the weeds grow up. I mean,
I guess,
I don't know why we're paying this guy to go out there and cut it, really, myself, but.
I guess, can we have the register of deeds? Can Denise look into it before we even further, just see if it's even an option before we move forward with discussion?
yeah, I'd have no problem with it.
Yeah, can I comment?
Go ahead.
I just think that if that is a decision we make, that would have to go to bid. I mean,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's part of our policies and we gotta follow them. Commissioner Mayhew, do you have anything?
Once you sell it, it won't be yours.
Then we won't have to mow it anymore.
Okay. Commissioner comments. Commissioner, you had a question? Did you want to make this part of your statement or you had a question for Tim? You can ask, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, I thought we had, on the last meeting, I thought today was a deadline or something about the issue about the lieutenant position. It does not exist.
We discussed that at law enforcement committee as well. The hesitation the sheriff had to do with union status for the position. They offered that really isn't our issue. You've set the authorized staffing level. Make the move, make the appointment, and if the employee wishes to become part of a union, to grieve it, to do whatever, there's processes for that. If there is question, it would go to an arbitrator, and an arbitrator would decide whose position is gonna prevail. But my point was that we need to get from dead center here. The board has spoken, the board has not altered the position allocation list at all.
Yep,
We have a jail administrator, that's the position and that's the one that should be filled.
and put it out there and advertise it.
Hey, let him finish. Go ahead. What?
And sheriff had to leave, but he wanted to talk to the undersheriff a little bit more about it, but that's where I am. There is a position that you've authorized. That's the one we fill.
Let's fill it
We gave at the last meeting and
until today.
we gave a week for an update.
Right.
And that's where we're at. That should have been on here, but,
Well, we've also had the unfortunate occurrence
Right.
we talked about at the beginning of the meeting too, and then there was a question about movement of current lieutenant to the correction officer position. There were some barriers there because it can't necessarily bump into another unit directly, which again, I understand. But that gets us right back at square one. You have not authorized a lieutenant, you have authorized a jail administrator. That's the position that has to be filled. And as I said, once that move is made, if there's a question, there's processes in place to work through the question, whether it's through a grievance, whether it's through, some other mechanism of filing for union recognition, whatever that might be. Those steps can then be made, but we've got to get off at center. And you've spoken, unless you're telling me tonight, you want to alter that position allocation list. You've said it, and you've said it according to statute. And that's where we stand.
Comment.
Commissioner Wiltie.
Yeah, this was a big topic. We spoke probably for 10 to 15 minutes regarding this today. I hope more than anything, the sheriff did state, as Tim said, that he would be talking with the undersheriff. And I hope more than anything, they realize the importance of this. It is a promotion to Tom Howard. We all know the courts have talked since Tom's been back. We've been very well known that Tom is a huge asset with this transition and to what we have going on. The promotion, Tom's job is not at risk. I hope more than anything, they make this decision and that Tom becomes our jail administrator. Because the next part that really bothers me, and I brought this up a number of times today, is sadly, with the lossing of Tommaso, and prayers for his family, it's absolutely horrible. We're facing a possible really bad situation next week, that if that decision isn't made by the sheriff and the undersheriff, then Tom, I would basically think now that he cannot move into this corrections positions because of these union issues, that means Tom would no longer be employed. We lost a current employee this week. So now we're back to courts next week. And where are we at? We're right back to where we were, where there were security issues. People were not feeling safe. And we're going backwards again. And the bottom line is that safety of our people on the second floor and our employees. So there's a lot of very crucial moving parts to this right here.
So I guess what's the next step?
Post a position.
Your resolution on this is absolutely the final word. So I expect we're going to have a jail administrator, or a position will be posted. But that's it. I mean, there's no other, if an individual doesn't like the decision, that doesn't undo the decision. Okay, that was your decision. It was made. That's what will be filled. And, it's no different really than those promotions that were made. Those positions do not exist, so we don't pay for them. In this case, with the jail administrator, it is a pay increase. So it would be, a boost to the individual. But there is, as far as I'm concerned, there's no question as to what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the jail administrator. That's the end of the story.
That's right.
So it's just a matter of, the sheriff sending the PAR form through and off we go. If there are questions, as I said, there are avenues to challenge that, and that would be up to the individual to do, or the union, or whomever. But your decision is firm, and that's what needs to be carried out.
Commissioner Scott?
Oh, yeah, I'm on this. Right now, we have the number of corrections officers we've got budgeted for, but there's an empty slot, and that's the jail administrator. Either it's hired from the outside or it's put in from the inside,
Let's post it.
and that is,
Sorry.
it's not a posted position. It's a position that the sheriff can just put somebody in there. It's a not at-will position, and the sheriff can put anybody in there without having to post it through the union and everything like that. So at that point, if it comes from the ranks, then we'll bring somebody up into that. If it's somebody brought in from the outside, we already have the staffing. She wants to.
I guess my question is, and this is terrible timing, and I don't mean any disrespect. I really don't. That is a tragedy over this past week. That's a huge hit and loss. But this has been a conversation for a couple weeks. I guess I understand our decision making. How do we how do we continue to pay an individual in a position that's non-existent?
Yeah. And just I'm thinking out loud here. I mean, we could just start paying the jail administrator's salary and move forward. But the catch to that is this board does not name the jail administrator. That's a job of the sheriff. So that's the quandary we're in.
I don't think you answered my question. How long do we continue?
Whoa.
We said with our resolution, hang on, I'm talking. We said at the resolution last week, we'd give it 7 days. And again, I don't mean any disrespect to as long as there was conversation and there's a plan in place, which I think we're all waiting for.
Yeah. So let me get with legal again on this about what you can just simply impose. But again, there's a position we're paying for that we don't have allocated.
Correct.
So, that's the rub. I wish there were precedent for this. I could say X county did this and here's how it was resolved. I don't believe anybody's ever faced this. So we may be blazing new paths here, but the thought is just simply that we just discontinue recognizing the lieutenant position and recognize the jail administrator and move it forward. Now, just would be so much easier if the sheriff would simply make the appointment, because I just not speaking for the sheriff, but it would appear that obviously he doesn't want to lose Tom Howard either. Make the appointment. If somebody needs to challenge it, the mechanism is there to do that. But in the meantime, we're not talking about it anymore.
Commissioner Scott.
No, I got nothing more to say. I'm fine.
So I guess, do we have a plan of action or what, are we gonna talk about this next week? Are you gonna
Let
get
me-
updated? Cause I still don't know.
Talk to legal one more time tomorrow to find out what absolute action we can take. But again, I believe the board has already acted.
Agreed?
So it's just a matter now of
Well,
having the position filled.
this is not any different than the road patrol deputies, okay? I can't force the sheriff to run out and hire 2 more people, and I can't tell him who to hire.
Yep.
Okay, he's got 2 positions, 2 vacancies on road patrol right now. Okay, you wanna talk about safety of the community? You can. We need 2 more deputies, but I can't force the sheriff to go and hire 2 people tomorrow because there's 2 vacancies.
Yep.
He's an elected official. He has to hire those people whenever they're, whatever ones he can pick to fit that position. And he's got the same dilemma with the jail administrator. Now, you can put names on it and you can personalize this and everything else if you want. There's a slot open and it needs to be filled, and it's up to the sheriff to fill it,
I agree.
not us.
My question, hold on, my question was, and all of that, I agree with everything you're saying. I think we all know that.
All right.
My question is how long are we going to continue to be paying an individual in a position that's not existed?
We shouldn't have paid it in the first place.
Commissioner, that was my question. What are we doing? This can be stalled out as long as something's done.
What's the pay difference we're talking?
A few $1,000s.
Well, put this way, we answered the question about the sergeants that not existing anymore, right? What did we do there?
We did not recognize the promotions.
No, I mean the sergeant in the corrections. That was brought up.
Right, and the position allocation list has 5 corrections officers. Some of those were sergeants in the past. The budget did not reduce anybody's pay, just
There you
kept
go.
them where they were. In this case, with a jail administrator, it's more pay. It's not like we're losing money paying.
I know.
Lieutenant, right? So that's, another oddity of all of this.
Do we take the rank away and leave the pay the same?
You can't take the.
Well, we did for the sergeants. There are sergeants and corporals, aren't there?
We even
There was rank pre this budget, there was rank inside the corrections. The budget does not recognize that rank anymore, but their pay did not go down. Okay, they're now corrections officers without rank, but their pay didn't go down. So do we do the same thing for the lieutenant? He stays in as a corrections officer at the same rate?
Well, again, that would be the sheriff's call as to where he's gonna.
And then he still has to fill an administrator spot.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, that the rank is gone, but the administrator spot is there.
I guess I was just looking for, is there any update on a plan?
Well,
A
that could be a
direction?
plan.
Again, I will get a hold of legal tomorrow, so we don't make any missteps. You've spoken,
Okay,
and that's what we need to enforce.
Commissioner comments, do you have any?
Nope.
I don't either. Commissioner Scott?
Well, the only thing I got to say about that, and I don't want to spend that kind of money really, but it would answer 2 of the problems that the sheriff has. He has a problem with how much he makes and then he's in some kind of union. No, I have to. If he doesn't hold rank, he can't sit in a command unit.
Right?
So it'd be up to the corrections unit to say, we don't want the guy or we do want the guy. It's up to them.
again, though, it comes down to an action has to be taken to even get the union to question it and grieve it or whatever it is they want to do.
Right.
That's where I am, just make the decision, let's get off center and move forward. I don't, on the top of my head, know how to do that because of this co-employer situation that we're in.
Yeah.
But that's where I'll get the advice of counsel. But as I said, you've spoken, it's black and white, what you've decided. And that's from where I sit, that's what you pay me to enforce. So that's what we'll do.
I'm on number 6, commissioner comments. Do you have anything off of this
No, I
topic?
don't have any.
Commissioner Wiltie, I'm
Just a
sorry.
couple quick things. I've got a lot of stuff coming up, so I didn't have a lot, but this past Monday, via Zoom, I attended the Northern Michigan Commissioners Association. Again, it's a great time to network, find out what our, actually 16 other counties are a part of that. One big item that is very important to us, and we've talked about this before, especially with being how rural we are, is the state septic code. This is not going away. And the part that's really alarming right now, I've been paying a lot of attention to this, and I know the sponsor of this, it's Sam Sink, and Sam Singh is a very powerful man, and lame ducks going on right now. So I sure hope that we don't get any real big surprises out of what could happen here, but this could affect our county residents greatly in a very negative way with major financial costs. I'm hoping what comes out of it, if there is any movement, is that it's strictly enforced more of rivers, streams, lakes, and slowly there's a plan put into place. But like I said, it's a very strong man that's running it, and it's lame duck. So I'm very nervous about that. I'll keep you guys posted. And just one more thing, Mills Township, we had a clerk who won the election. She ran unopposed. She ended up is moving out of the county, so she had to get sworn in and then resign, and that all happened. But I was very happy to see, and this is just kind of a point I want to make because it's something that I have seen and I've found out information on. That's the way the county has run in the past. You know, Bruce Beach, the new supervisor, called a special meeting. He did it right. He made it in front of the people to say what was going on, gave people the option if they wanted to run for the position. And I was very glad to see that because again, and this is just not an Ogemaw County thing. This happens all over the place, but this buddy system of I'm gonna get my buddy into this, or I'm gonna fill the pockets of my buddy doing this way is one of the reasons the county has some of the financial issues it has. Plus, it puts people in positions that are not qualified for that position. So I wanted to make a strong point that that is the way it needs to be. It needs to be that way across the whole county, townships, our county. The right people get put in position and it done the right way. So I wanted to make a point to state that that's how we need to go moving forward. And I know we're heading in the right direction in those areas. So,
What did they decide?
they have a new clerk. 2 people ran for it and they made a decision that night for the clerk position.
Fantastic. Somebody with experience?
Yes. Yeah, she's got a lot of experience. She's gonna be great for the township because she's got big shoes to fill.
Oh, absolutely.
April, who was there, was a very intelligent woman, long time, knew what was going on. So I was very happy to see who they hired.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, public comment. Any public comment in the room? Any public comment on the phone? We have a closed session and then there'll be no business afterwards, correct? Someone want to make a motion to go into closed session?
Make a motion.
Well, you got to read it off.
Somebody have
Good evening, guys.
I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session to discuss collective bargaining MCL 15.268 1C.
Do you stay for this, Paul?
No. Other two units.
Other unions.
Did you forward ULC's
I'll support.
reference to
This
Howard
was still on the
situation?
I did not, but I will mention it in
I know.
session.
Yeah, if you would.
Can I do a roll call vote?
If you could maybe have Matt call me tomorrow
I am not.
at some point after you've had this discussion.
You're not what?
When it's brought up
When
here,
did this-
because I mean,
Well,
yeah, I mean, I think the union's already asking their questions, and I'd like to hear from Matt as far as the demand target, but.
Yeah.
You know, help in that, but, John Donser, have him get over you too, on a city matter, that Snyder Cups. There's a recommendation reference her position.
Okay.
I believe she was a recommendation.
I know,
Previous.
we're live.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Paul.
All right,
Roll call vote to go into closed session.
all right. Charles Wiltie,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Jenny David,
Yes.
Mayhew, Brenda Simmons. Yeah.
Okay, hang on, we gotta wait for Tom. Tom?
I'll call you, Tom. Oh, go ahead.
Motion to come back into open session.
Motion.
Yeah.
Roll call vote. Yes.
Simmons. Yes. Mayhew.
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Scott. That's good news, huh?
Yes.
Wiltie.
Yeah.
Good, 7-0.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, all in favor?
Yes.
Bye.
Opposed? They're
Bye, gotta
adjourned.
go.
Good night,
Thank you.
guys.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
What?